3. Welcome to the Blender Users Group of Los Angeles. We're glad to have you here. We have a number of different speakers, including folks talking on what's new with Blender, some Blender 2.9 feature overviews, using Blender for texture painting and retopo, and then we have a really great show and tell for Blender projects. So welcome everyone. Now, in our bigger meetings, we get upwards of, 30, 35 people sometimes in our bigger meetings in LA. And there's usually somebody in the room that has never used Blender before. Is there anybody here that it's their first time to Blender? Feel free to unmute and speak up. Okay, just in case you're shy, I usually spend less than 60 seconds on this slide. It's a fantastic free for everyone open source package that lets you do modeling, sculpting, rigging, shading, animating, rendering, compositing, and video editing. We're kind of going through a golden age of Blender where it's incredibly well funded by not only individuals like you and me. Like I donate to the Blender Fund. I think it's cost of a cup of coffee every month. But also there's some really big names that are contributing to Blender. This list at the bottom of the slide isn't even up to date. I think Facebook joined this week amongst others. But yeah, there's a really big group of companies that are using it for all manner of things and contributing to the open source project. That gives us more developers, which gets us more features. And so it's a pretty exciting time to be using it. Let's maybe start the meeting with a straw poll. So I want to know what you guys have been using Blender for lately. So I'm going to drop this URL into the Menti chat. And let's see what you guys have been up to. Where is the chat here? There we go. Gonna send this to everyone. There you go. Click that and enter a word or a few words. It looks like we have a 25 character limit. I want to see what you guys have been using Blender for. All right, let me stop this share. I'm going to share screen and share this screen. All right, awesome. We have one person voting modeling, another visual effects, character modeling, visual effects, virtual sets. That's cool.
I don't know. Are we seeing your screen?
Oh, yeah. Is that not sharing correctly? Oh, you know what? I forgot to click OK. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, nice.
There we go. Let me know if you can see that. Industrial animation, grease pencil animations. That's cool. It's a particularly good time to be doing grease pencil stuff and sculpting stuff in Blender. As a hobbyist, I get to kind of pick my passion projects around what features are getting the most development in Blender, and that's kind of a fun way to get to learn those features. Kind of like Sean doing sculpting at the moment.
What is industrial animation?
Yeah, good question.
So typically for engineering projects, a user might use a CAD program, etc. And then there's some engineering-related industrial learning videos. If you were to Google it, or look for it on YouTube, utilize as training tools, lessons learned, or really anything you can think of. But for my line of work, it applies directly towards the maritime industry.
Awesome. All right. So it sounds like we have a mix. So in these meetings, we normally run a poll, and what you guys have been telling us lately is that we should cover more modeling sessions in these meetings. So I think Sean's session is timely. We'll definitely cover more modeling. And what I'm seeing here kind of reflects that as well. So it sounds like a little bit of modeling for game assets, for kind of characters. So thank you. Grease pencil for fantasy maps, beginner animated short films. Awesome. Well, I can't wait to read about some or see some demos on some of these things. So feel free to keep voting. I'm going to keep going in the interest of time. So, hey, and if David Andrade jumps on the line and you want me to jump straight to your session, please do. So since our last meeting, which actually was about 3 weeks ago, it's roughly about 100 days ago. It was about 98 days ago, which is a long time. We generally tend to have our meetings whenever there's a major Blender release. A lot has happened. I'm not going to cover everything that's gone on in the industry, but there's been a lot of development in Blender 2.91. It is a point release, so more just super cool stuff than like truly revolutionizing, the user interface or the file format or some of the engines within the product. But there's some pretty cool stuff in there. So before I go any further, I usually like to show Blender. So actually, hold on. Let me stop. I'm gonna share screen and I'm gonna share my entire desktop. So you guys can see it. All right. You guys should be looking at Blender right now. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
I can see it.
Awesome.
Yep. looks
Okay,
good.
so this is actually the demo file that is the Blender startup screen. So if you go help, let's see. Oh, no, maybe it's under window. I
It's
used to
under
know
the-
where this was.
The little blender symbol on the left.
Oh, it's under the Blender
Very
symbol
top
now. Okay, awesome. Oh goodness, there's all these little UI things. So yeah, this is the Blender startup screen. Pretty cool. Love the colors. But they make all these downloadable. So if you want to go play around with them and see what they're like. So this is Blender, right? You can create things in 3D. You have, I'm just gonna go new. You have these different layouts for 2D animation using grease pencil, sculpting, much like Mudbox and apps like that. Visual effects for doing like motion tracking and things like that, and then video editing. So yeah, it's a fantastic app, and we'll be going into a lot of that. So some of the new UI improvements. So hopefully we've all been using Blender 2.91. It released sometime around North America Thanksgiving. And so a lot of us were busy doing family things. One of the things I love about it is this new search box up here. So this allows you to do things like, I don't know, like I'm just going to pick something that I always find hard to find, which is like the transparency option.
Hey, Sterling, I'm good to go when you're good to go.
Awesome. All right. Sounds good. So so here's the transparency option. You just start searching and it automatically opens the panel where you try and find it. So this film transparency option, let's see, what's the description? World background is transparent, right? Something that you may want to find all the time, but it's just like mysteriously hidden under this option called film, right? Which is sometimes not so intuitive. So it includes fuzzy searches, which is great. That allows you to do, that actually works within nodes as well. So, if you're working in this search dialog, fuzzy searches still work too. So if you want to go SSS, it's going to find subsurface scattering. So pretty cool stuff. It includes modeling enhancements, like I'll show some Boolean stuff, some sculpting enhancements, which Sean's going to be doing some of that for. Grease pencil, which I think David's going to be showing. Volume object stuff, which I'll demonstrate. Something that gets the visual effects people really excited is motion blur. So there's been some minor enhancements to motion blur for Eevee, where you get to adjust the shutter position, which is something that Cycles has had for a while. There's been all sorts of great IO import export stuff around Alembic and USD and GLTF, which is great again for building Blender into a large pipeline. There's some kind of minor Python changes. We have something like an emission strength factor within principal BSDF, and so if you're importing old materials that get converted to principal BSDF, you need to know about these sort of things. There's some really cool physics upgrades like compound body shape collisions, as well as animation improvements. And maybe if I give David enough time, he can actually demonstrate some of those for us as well. And so on and so forth. I mean, I'm going to stop here and actually just pass it over to David. So he can demo for us. David, you still on the line?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great. So I've got you down for mesh to grease pencil, but quite frankly, demo anything you like, and
Sure.
we'll go from there. Introduce yourself and let us know who you are.
Sounds good. Hey, everybody. My name is David Andrade. I'm the co-founder of Theory Studios, a animation and game design group out of Orlando in Canada, Orlando, Florida, and Canada. Working with these guys and known most of you for a long time. And one of the things I've been doing lately is teaching for Linda. And just recently, of course, like Stirling, you mentioned, 2.91 came out. And I had the great pleasure of going through all the release notes and learning everything about 291 and what is inside Blender. So that course comes out next month, comes out in January, I think like mid-January on lynda.com. But for you guys, if anyone's ever interested in like what is in that newest version of Blender, you can find that all online. If you just type in Blender release notes, you'll see them. So these are the 291 release notes, but what's kind of neat is that if you go up a folder, you'll see that there's everything from 292 to all of the older versions. So if you want to get like ahead, like, hey, what's going on with 292? And you can check out like, hey, look, there's all these sculpting updates and everything in 292. And what's even better, Blender's pretty decent at this. You can click on schedule and it'll tell you the schedule of events of what's happening. So 292 is slated for, this says end of February. I'm going to say maybe early March might be a fair time that it'll come out. So Blender is aggressively growing and updating. But for Blender 291, release notes, there are a few things that were written in the chat. What's funny is that one of them I actually didn't cover, so we're going to learn on the spot together. But there's so much really good stuff in here, so I'll just go through some of the bigger ones. So we'll start with user interface, which is like one of the coolest things to do. Is you can right-click and make these colorful, and you think that like a collection being colorful is not useful, but trust me, it is. It's insanely useful to have multiple colors because then you can easily just filter out stuff and know what you need to do. You know what? Also, just for the fact that I'm sharing and who knows what the resolution is like, I'll make it a little thicker. So there we go. So that's really handy, right? Your collections are like groups or layers in Photoshop, but inside Blender you can color code them. So that's awesome. One of the most hidden features that I love actually about 291 that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about is this. It's the quick search bar. So for example, what if you wanted to show the wireframe or something? You just type in anything like wireframe and it comes up. Now, if you type in something like material, you'll see that it goes right to that material, even though I was in the object search. So maybe I can type in like constraints. And there we are. It takes me to, in this case, the rigid body constraint. So I love this little feature. It's just Control F. You just have to hover your mouse. It's mouse context sensitive. You just hover over it and it's there, which complements this one, of course, the operator search. The default for that is F3. But the one cool thing about this operator search is that all of the shortcuts are right here as well. This is especially difficult for me when you're flying really fast through stuff, but you have to teach somebody something. Well, now you don't need to tell them what menu or whatever. Just type in whatever it is, like add modifier or something like that, and you'll see the shortcut right there to the left. So that in combination with this is just awesome. I love the searchability. So you type in film, transparent. So it's pretty cool. So those are two like off the top that are some of my favorites. I think the booleans have improved greatly, and I don't have a demo to show the booleans, but the one that's on their website is super solid. I did this project for Shark Ninja where we had to cut into one of their products as like a food grill, and we used booleans 2 years ago now, and it was really difficult because you'll get this popping over here. See that? It'll occasionally pop. And that's just legacy code, but as of 291, it's just super nice and smooth. Like it's incredible. So I love that. That's a real fun one to show. They talk a little bit more about booleans and how they work, some of the more little details that are inside of it. Another good one that I don't have a demo for, but I think the website provides a really excellent image, is the ability to have a proxy version of an ocean modifier, but then the high-res one for render. Plus, they've just updated Ocean Modern for quite a bit in 291, so it's pretty great. Highly recommend it. This is the one I was talking about that funny enough, in the course, I did not touch on curves at all. So this is like my weakest part of Blender. I don't know how curves work too well, like how to get this awesome shape. This is just incredible. But the update to Blender, what they did is they now allowed you to do custom profiles for your beveling, which I mean just gives you really incredible results. Now, if you don't use curves, you can do this with a cube too. So if we make our cube kind of big, we can hit Control B to bevel it. And if you open up your little bevel options down in here, you can click on Custom Profile. Now, initially, it won't do anything, right? Until you add like a bazillion segments. And now you can do all sorts of really cool bevels. So while I may not know how to do it on curves, I can definitely do it at least with mesh. You always want to click hard in normals, I think, because that just gives you a really nice look to everything. So, and it's also available in the modifier. So if you add a cube, you can do it in the bevel modifier as well. It's the same idea, custom, crazy idea here. And if you don't see anything, that's because you need way more segments. And there you go. It's pretty awesome. But now that's available for curves. So how cool is that? One of the ones I really enjoy is this. So let's just add a monkey. And I'm going to smooth out the monkey for no reason. You know what? And for good measure, I'm going to make the back half of this monkey. So bear with me really quick. I'm going to make the back half of this monkey. I'm going to make him red. So we'll make him red, and we'll also do it in the viewport display. So he's red. And then we will invert, Control I, and make a new monkey. Or I'm sorry, a new material, and we'll make it green because, you know, holiday spirit. All right, so green. And assign it. Okay, so now if we go to our solid and our material preview, we have a green and red monkey. And if the demo gods are nice to me, I can do grease pencil. And check this out. Convert to grease pencil or bake mesh to grease pencil. Okay, so let's really challenge the demo gods today. We're gonna make some animation here. So we're just gonna like animate this, and it's like a bouncing ball, but it's a bouncing monkey. All right, so there we go. And maybe we'll stretch them out so my old animation professors would be happy that I did my squash and stretch correctly. Okay, so there we are. We have ourselves this awesome monkey animation. Pretty great. Okay, so this works in demos. Let's see if it works here. Okay, bake mesh to grease pencil. I use the operator search for everything. I'm sure it's easy to find how to do this, but I like the operator search. So this whole bunch of options here. I'm just gonna leave it. Okay, just leave it by default. Take a deep breath, because this worked in a little demo the other day that I was setting up for this. So we're gonna do it live.
Do you have to sacrifice like a license to Maya to the demo
so.
gods?
Yeah, I had to download Autodesk something and then uninstall it. Oh man, that's the one downside is so many things in Blender tend to be single threaded. So you're thinking to yourself, hey, wait a minute. I have a billion threads. Oh, there it did it. It did it. Okay, so let's go ahead and hide Suzanne. There's the mesh. Here's the grease pencil. Look at that. Isn't that cool? So now this is a, yeah, this is a three-dimensional grease pencil. And it's quite cool. So you would think like, wait a minute, this just looks like a 3D model, and you might not be wrong, but if you go into edit mode, it is actually a drawing, and then you can go into draw mode and just draw on top of it. In this case, I have the green material, so I'm just gonna mess around with that. But anyways, let's get out of that and unselect. Actually, let me just get into object mode. But my point is you now have a 2D drawing, which I added an extra little drawing for fun, along with your 3D variation of that. So if you want to get into like 2D animation, you could use these as like guides for drawing, or just animate it in 3D and then convert it. And you can get some pretty cool stuff to then mess with. And because it treats 2D drawings kind of like a mesh, you get the full ability to edit vertices and stuff, but they have their own variations. It's like vertice and stroke. So the tools are not exactly the same, but it's just incredible. So that's a real fun one. For those of you who are into sculpting, I hope I don't touch on everything that people are going to show off. So I'll be careful not to. But
go for it.
I'm not going to show off anything except retopology, so you go nuts.
Okay, all right, okay. So let's go to sculpting. All right, so sculpting has a bunch of tools. By the way, you used to be able to, there you go, pull it out here, you can get to too. If you haven't done this yet, this is just awesome. I just love the cloth brush, like it's just real time and clothy. I kind of wish that they made things very they had shades smooth on by default. They don't, but the cloth brush is just awesome. That's a slightly older feature, but I just want to show it. But there's cloth sculpting, so you can actually have the cloth act a little bit differently in terms of different strength. That's just awesome stuff that you can do with it. We talked about grease pencil. We talked about the whole 3D to 2D kind of thing. There are small updates to how the interface works, which is pretty good. Eevee has multi-scatter, which if you don't really know the difference, at the cost of a little bit of performance, you get a better look. So you can see how the light just shapes it a lot better from the top to the bottom. I think multi-scatter is a little bit more expensive, but oh, and motion blur, that's right. Input output, Alembic got a big update. I actually just used this on a big project. It's a lot faster. There's just a few weird things you always have to know to do, which is to flatten the hierarchy when you export. But Alembic and GLTF, they're one day we're not going to have FBX, and that's because we'll use Alembic. So it's getting there. We're not there today, but it's getting there. Physics was really cool. This, rather than setting up a demo and doing a physics bake, we'll just watch this. You can do this in Blender now. So all this is just a bunch of rigid bodies as a chain, and he just runs the simulation, and it just works. So that's a lot nicer now than it used to be. It's called compound shape for rigid bodies, because it used to be convex. So if you don't know what that means, I'll show you. Make a monkey, make a plane. There you go. Rigid bodies are really awesome and simple to do. You go to physics and make the monkey active, and you make the plane passive. That way the plane doesn't fall. And then you have these shapes, right? These shapes, convex hull will just try to shrink wrap the whole thing. So rather than having this cavity, it'll actually fill in that shape. And the advantage to that is that it's a lot faster for simulation, which is kind of nice. So let's just go to the beginning. But the downside, of course, is that because it's a convex hull, it doesn't have a lot of freedom. Now, I can't do this because I don't have children attached to it, but yeah, you can do a compound thing where one thing is attached to another thing, attached to another thing, and so on, which is quite fun. So, oh my gosh, and fluid. Fluid is tough. I just want to point that out. Like, if anyone wants to get into fluid simulations in Blender, it's really pretty. It's just really tough. It's gotten a bit of a big upgrade, and I can't remember if this happened in 290 or 291, but you can create the mesh and the volumes all at the same time. But fluids can be tough. If you've never done a fluid, and if this is your first time in Blender, we're gonna use a monkey, because I always do all my demos with a monkey. But if you just do your operator search, you can type in quick liquid, and now you have yourself fluid. But the only thing I always recommend is that you turn on mesh. It's a little checkbox right there. And now you have yourself, if I just go back to the beginning, you have yourself a monkey that comes out like water. But then you're gonna say, David, I want it to be a hose. So then you make it an inflow. And I don't know if this is gonna work. See, this is a little bit of a weird bug, a little gotcha, where the cache doesn't update, so you have to reset it. And I find that messing with divisions will reset it. But now I have a monkey that drops water. But you have to be careful, because if you move said monkey, it won't real-time react to it. So fluid can just be tricky. So let's just animate this monkey moving, fiddle with divisions a little bit, and then just play it again. And there you go. Now you have a monkey faucet. That works really quite well, actually. But the reason I say fluid can be kind of tough is you'll see that it looks kind of big and chunky. So to really get that ocean feel, you're gonna have to turn up your divisions and everything. It gets kind of expensive really fast.
Yeah, you need a powerful machine with lots of RAM and patience.
Yeah, I'm blowing through all of these threads right now, just doing that. You know what? I can't remember. Is it? I don't know if it was in this version, but physics is getting multi-threaded, or it is multi-threaded. I might have my data wrong there, so don't quote me on it. But it used to be.
Yeah, that's amazing, because it used to be single threaded, but
Yeah.
looking at your threads, it looks like it's running on a lot.
Yeah, it looks like it's using all of them. Thankfully, there's that dip from when I stopped. So,
You know what I find is, like, it uses more threads more efficiently depending on the number of divisions you put in. So it's really odd. There's some tie between the two.
you might, yeah. You know, I've also noticed that with ever since they moved to ManaFlow, because now when you do smoke, which, by the way, if you want to do smoke and fire, you just click that little box. Sorry, I just spent like a full week after Thanksgiving recording this course, so I'm all in like teaching mode. So if this
keep going. This is great stuff.
It's boring, let me know. Okay, so you always want to apply your scale. Always, so that's Control A. You always want to apply your scale for simulation. If not, you're just asking for trouble. You know, it can get nasty. So I don't know, let's do 48. Noise is on by default. That's what makes it look so good. And replay is really sweet. So you can pause it. Oh, sorry, you have to check this on. So that way you can do a sim, pause it, look around, and if you like it, resume the sim. If you don't have this on and you run the simulation and you pause it, in order to get that remaining bit, you have to restart the entire thing. So at a cost of memory and storage space, by clicking that, you can do your sim, pause it, look around, inspect to see if it's okay, and then continue going. So that's really handy. There is this version called All, but it only works with other ManaFlow stuff. Particles and dynamic paint have caches, and particles and dynamic paint also have caches, but they don't get affected by that. But you can tell now, like, we have this pretty wicked smoke, and it's looking really quite good. So not bad at all. And because it's a Eevee, gives you a lot of ability to see it quite quickly, which I really love, but nothing beats cycles. So which, now that we're here, if you have not enabled denoising in the viewport, you really should enable denoising in the viewport. We're going to set this down to 1 sample and just see what we get. Look at that. That's 1 sample. It's almost real time. It's almost real time. But yeah, if you're new to Blender and you haven't turned on viewport denoising, you really should. It's awesome.
I feel like we should buy a license for Emergen to all of the core Blender developers to see
Right.
if we can inspire them.
Yeah. So this is actually there are updates to 291, but there's one that's to 290, and then a little enhanced here, a little further with NLA that I want to show. So I'll end on this one. Well, I guess we should also tell everybody about Collection Manager. So I'll go backwards. Let me do Collection Manager first. I don't know if we've covered this in the LA blends. Stop me if we have, but some of us are old and like the old version of Blender's collection management system. So that's what you get with Collection Manager. And you have this nicer system when you hit M to move things, and you have these little slots. If you're used to the old slot system, you can move it around 1, 2, 3, etc. So Collection Manager is really quite nice. And I always got to give a shout out to everybody at BlenderKit, because BlenderKit is just so easy to use. It comes default with Blender. And you can sign up, and they have a paid program and all of that stuff. But I love this. So let's just go ahead and add a plane. Let's see. Sometimes you have to like cycle it and type in chair. Okay, there we go. So BlenderKit loaded. I'm gonna left click and drag a chair. And now I have a chair in this scene. And I just like, that's just awesome. That integration is so easy. And then if I go back to like materials, they have a bunch of ice ones that are out for the wintry season. So I just dragged and dropped an ice, and like, look at that. It's just awesome and easy. So if you've never used BlenderKit, it comes with Blender, and it's incredible. You can sell your own 3D art on it too. Like I said, they have some free ones and they have some paid ones. Okay, but animation, this is like my favorite one, I guess naturally, right? Because I'm an animator. All right, so this might fly over some people's heads because you might say, I don't get it. What's the point of this? But this is, especially if you're making games, I'd say this is really just incredible. So let's make ourselves an animation really fast. Sorry if you hear the little lady. It's food time and she's teething. I don't know if it's coming through, but all right, so here we are. Here's some awesome animation, right? Really fantastic animation. Okay. So what you want to do is hit this little button. It's called push down, and that makes it a track. So then you can think of MLA as like a like a Premiere timeline or any kind of video editing kind of timeline, right? So you have a track for your animation. Sequencer, if you're used to Unreal, same kind of idea. All right, but then you have an art director who says, oh, I don't want it to go over here. I don't want it to go over here. I want it to go farther. I want it to go over here. And it also has to be bigger. So you have to move it and you have to make it big. Well, in the olden days, you would have to like go through the graph editor and hit tab, and you have to go into graph editor and maybe normalize your keyframes so that you can see them all and then move them, and it gets all funny. And that's the old way of doing it. But in the new way of Blender, what you can do is, let's go ahead and I'm gonna scale it up and hit I. All right, so just by hitting a keyframe, you can see it's created a new track here. And where it says blending, go to combine. I want to make sure, yeah, that one says combine. This one should say combine. This one should say combine. Now, if I don't do anything, you can see that, whoa, wait a minute. My animation is now bigger. But now the second thing needs to happen is that in air, so let's just say I location, rotation, scale. But remember, the art director said, I want it to go farther. So now G and X, hit I. And now, if you're following along, you can blend your animations, all by using this combine feature. And then it just gets crazier. Then you're like, the art director says, oh, but I also want it spinning in midair. So you're like, hey, no problem, boss. And you just have it like spinning a bunch of times in midair. Let's see, is it? Yeah, 560 times. So let's see what happens. Whoa, 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 whoa. All through combine. So if you ever find yourself layering animations, maybe you have like a walk, but then you want to make that walk kind of like droop a little bit more and he's like hurt or whatever, you can have your regular walk cycle. Then you can have, for a single frame, just change the entire pose and now he's walking like this the whole time. You know, so that's one of the coolest things that you can do with this. And that just becomes a brand new action. And if you need to bake it down, you just bake it down to a single action. And there you go, you're easy, it works. But this is my favorite feature, and they improved it in 291 and they snuck it in 290, and it's just, I remember being at SIGGRAPH asking Ton for animation layers because Maya had just come out with it like 6, 7, 8 years, I don't even remember how long ago it was. And it's like revolutionary, you know, it's amazing. You could layer animation, and here we are 8 years later with animation layers. So NLA, and it's called combine. And you gotta drop down in action. You'll see the buttons and everything. This interface can be scary at first because it's really different for animation people. But once you think about it, it's just a layer system, and you can rename it. You know, that it all starts to make a lot more sense. Okay, so that's my demo for Blender 291. There's a lot of features, and I recommend people check it out. I didn't touch on that volume object one. I guess I can just share my screen. But oh wait, sorry, Sean, you were gonna say something? Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say I could demo the volume stuff if you like, David.
Yeah, that works. Unfortunately, I have to head out a little early today, otherwise I'd stay. But I'll end on saying that Blender 291 is awesome. I'll plug my course next time. Well, it comes out next month, so I'll plug it next time it's out. But you know, I teach at Linda, and we did one in late October, early November called How to Be a Character Animator in Blender 290. So if anyone wants to learn very specific character animation stuff, we just released it on lynda.com. But if you're new to Blender and you're scared, you're from Autodesk or whatever, it's great. It's easy to use and easy to pick up. So
send me the details when the course is released, and I'll email the group.
Cool.
And let them know where they can find more information.
Cool. All right,
Thanks,
everyone.
David.
Have a great day.
Any questions for David before he goes?
Oh yeah, I'll take questions. I got a couple minutes.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
You were showing off, I think it was called Blender Kit, that one add-on with all the assets. Is it possible to add like your own personal assets to that manager that you can import in?
Yeah, that would be really great. I don't have a good answer to that, although there is one on the, there is like an asset manager that's on Blender Market. It's a paid add-on, but then it lets you manage your own assets. So that system, that interface with like the image pop-up is the thing that they added in the 280 series. So there's an add-on for it. I can't remember it off the top of my head, like Asset Library or something. So you should check that one out. It's on the Blender Market.
I'll search for that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Any other questions for David before we lose him?
Not permanently.
That was awesome, David. Thank you.
Yeah,
So handy.
no problem. No problem.
All
All right, guys. You have a good one. Thanks so much. And it's good seeing everybody.
Yeah. Cheers. Have a good one, David. All right. So excellent. Well, in this case, I think what I'll do here, let's see. Just to follow on from David's demo, if you like, I can kind of give you a quick demo of what it's like to use the new volume system in Blender. So hopefully you guys are seeing my Blender screen. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Or
See.
default cube. We're going to get rid of him. Let's see. We'll just go front view. I'm just going to demo this, I'm just going to add some text. Rotate on X 90 degrees, go into edit mode. We'll just call this la.blend, which is what we like to call our group. I'm maybe going to grab it, just center it a little bit before we get started. So we have this new volume object in Blender 2.91. So you could either import OpenVDB volume objects or just import an empty one. So in this case, I'm going to import an empty one. And then you'll see it show up in the outliner here. And when we select that volume object, modifiers particular to that volume object show up. So I'm going to just, whoops, before I do this, I'm going to take this text object and one of my favorite features, you hit F3 and this gives you a search. It gives you convert to mesh. I'm going to convert from a text object to a mesh object. It also tells you the path on how to get there through the menus, which is amazing because when you're doing kind of tutorials for noobs, you know, it's better to actually show them where to find it in the interface. So now that text object is a mesh. I'm going to select our volume. I'm going to say mesh to volume. And if I select text, you'll see an outline that basically outlines the volume. So if we hide our text, there's our mesh. It looks a little fuzzy, so let's go ahead and improve that a little bit. Let's see. So you can do a couple different things. You can, let's go ahead and hide that text again. So you can increase the density, which, you know, kind of just makes it more pronounced. Let's put that at about 3. It's also super low resolution, so you can increase the voxel amounts within that volume. So I like to go somewhere around, let's see, I start about 128. You can see it's starting to show a little bit more like it's text. 256 tends to be even better. And then, you know, you mess around with this. This is the exterior bandwidth. You can mess around with whether it gets full or not, and then mess around with the interior, which is handy for things like, you know, if you have like letters with stuff through them. But I just want to show you guys, whoops, you know what I should have done? I'm sorry. I should have actually created, done a little bit better extrude job on this before, but this is a 3-dimensional, you know, volume object. And then to make it even more interesting, let's see. I'm just going to mess around with this a little bit. Bring this up. Okay. Maybe bring it down instead. 0.05. Gives a little bit better clarity. Maybe increase the density up to like 4. So what makes this kind of fun is there's another modifier called volume displays. So from here, you can create a new volume or a new texture. I mean, let's go ahead and change that to like be a cloud texture. And you start to get this sort of thing, right? Starting to look a little bit more cloudy, right? So let's see, let's just muck around with this here. So like let's bring this all the way up to 1. All right, so you can see it kind of gets better defined. So let's bring this all the way down to like 0.1, right? Maybe insert a keyframe on this. Go to the middle of this timeline. Maybe make this like 0.5. Maybe keyframe that. Maybe go to the end here and bring this all the way into, whoops, did I forget to add a keyframe there? I think I did. Hold on. Go back there. Add 0.5. Add a keyframe. Go to the end. Bring this all the way up to 1. And then add a keyframe. And then what you end up getting is, let's say I was kind of mucking around with this. Yeah, I was mucking around with this just this morning, is you get something that looks a little bit like this. I use an add-on called Rotate Around Camera that's built in, but you could obviously create a create like a cloud that forms text and then deforms text. It's
I'm in seminar right now.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry.
Oh, whoops. Okay. Just some background noise. Anyways, super fun. I mean, the other thing that you can do that's also really fun, let's see, I'm just going to clear this out. Let's see, I'll grab this box and move it over. Let's go ahead and add another volume object. We'll import a VDB. Let's see. I grabbed one of these off the Embergen website. Let's see, we'll grab this guy. And you can actually, let's see if this plays. Whoops, what am I doing wrong here? Let's see. There we go, that's gonna be a little bit better, hopefully. And yeah, there we go. So there's a bunch of like demo OpenVDB kind of explosions and gas and things like that on the Embergen website. It's kind of fun to download. I'm sure there's other repositories on the internet, but this is just a classic like import this. You can then shade this. I think this is actually comes with, if we go down here to the volume object, you'll see it comes with a whole bunch of different variables here that you can affect to create flames and smoke and that kind of thing. The cool thing about this is, so we've got this volume object and we've got the default cube. If we go to cube and go down into the modifiers tab, you can actually do a volume to mesh. Pick our mesh is our Embergen gasoline explosion, which I think is the second one I added. There we go. And if I play this, you can see it's actually taking the volume and it's converting it into a mesh, which is pretty fun. They give you the option to add some smooth shading on this, so it's a little less jaggy. But you can see how something like this might work really well for, like, I don't know, if you were doing visual effects, you wanted to create some gore. If you had like a pink subsurface scattering on this, it'd start to look like a brain or guts, or maybe like a skin lesion or whatever. It's actually a really super cool feature. Let's see, what else we got. So I think we covered between David and I think we covered quite a bit of this. But there's a lot of different features. Like David was saying, I strongly recommend you check out the page here. They've written a really amazing kind of, there's kind of 2 different web pages. I can get the zoom pop over from coming up. There we go. So this is kind of the nerdy web page where you get to go drop into whatever you want. It gives links out to the different actual commits within the code. And then there's the beautiful page, right? If if you want to go see like really polished demos and examples of how all this works, you know, they do cool things like you can see how like this is the, you know, sorry, this is the old system and this is the new system and so forth. So anyhow, yeah, I think with that, I'm going to just maybe mention for those of you that are kind of new to Blender or haven't seen it in a while, these are some websites that you should know about. So blender.org is where you get the code, where you can go read the release notes we were talking about. Blender Nation is kind of like the New York Times of Blender or the LA Times of Blender. It has all sorts of great information on it about different things going on in Blender. Blender communities is like where you can find communities online. One of those communities is Blender Artists, which is kind of where people go to ask questions and share work in progress and get feedback. BuildBot is where you go get the pre-release Blender downloads. One of the cool things about Blender 2.92, so let's see. Let me show you guys. Okay, it's not even out here yet. So let's go to the download page. If you go down, go experimental, you can actually go get 2.92 alpha, which means it's pretty early in its development cycle. Blender geometry nodes. So geometry nodes, there's lots of good videos out there on how to use this. This is the very first portion of the everything nodes system. And there's some really
Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to Ask.
And there's some really great stuff you can do with this. So it's a nodal based procedural modeling system for doing things like scattering particles or creating geometry. So yeah, everybody's very excited about it, but BuildBot's where you go get that. And then CG Cookie, Blender Guru, and CG Masters are all different kind of tutorial sites that kind of help you get up to speed. CG Cookie's my favorite. I have a paid membership to that, and I strongly recommend it. And I think I'm going to just stop here. And before we go on to our next topic, take another straw poll. So again, use that same link that I dropped in the text chat earlier. And I want to know what your favorite new Blender 2.91 feature is. Let's see. Let's see how you guys are voting. All right. Let me make sure you guys have that URL. You guys still with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Everybody's so quiet today. Sorry if maybe we could try and make
Gosh,
this a
I'm
little
sorry
more.
we're being so considerate and respectful.
Don't be rude. All right.
My video doesn't work in this SUV. Is that because it's disabled?
Like you can't show your video, or you can't see the video.
Yeah, I can't show the video at all.
Maybe you're on an older device. I don't know.
It's interesting. Nope. Okay. But it was still enjoyable.
Is anybody else having that problem, or? Okay, just to remind everybody, this is the site to go and vote. All right, let's see how that vote's turning out. Awesome. Vector grease pencil, sculpting updates, geometry nodes, quick search bar, game assets. So maybe somebody's
I think some
excited
people,
about.
I think when you first sent us the page, it was still on this question before you switched it. So I think a couple answers to the previous question got put into this field.
Ah,
What
right.
the background
Okay.
set design is too.
Gotcha. Geometry nodes. Everybody's super excited about geometry nodes. I think we could probably spend a little bit more time on that. If anybody, by the way, has played with geometry nodes and wants to demo it for us, we definitely would take that. I personally haven't have any hands-on time, although I've watched a few videos on it.
Can you instance collections with geometry nodes?
That is a good question. I'm not sure if it's collections aware. Does anybody know?
I know the particle system is.
What was the question? I
But
missed it. Sorry.
I haven't. Can you instance collections with geometry nodes?
I'm not
No
sure if
idea.
you can right now, but I think you will. Because they showed one of the milestones was this trees with grass, etc., with different flowers. And I think they mentioned that they were using collections for that.
I'm just thinking, I know that the sort of mechanisms instance collections are in the program right now. You can do it with collection instances, you can do it in particle systems. So I'm sure at some point it'll make its way into geometry nodes, even if it's not there quite yet.
Yeah, it is part of the particle system. So yeah, it'll probably come.
Yeah, there's lots of good information coming on geometry nodes, and actually they're being really good about kind of being overt about how they're making the design decisions that they are. Okay, all right, awesome. Thanks for the vote, guys. This is super fun. I think at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Sean Kennedy. Sean, you ready to go?
Sure am. Yep, absolutely.
All right, awesome. Let me stop sharing here, and why don't you introduce yourself to the group and go for it.
Sure. I'm Sean Kennedy. I'm a visual effects artist in Los Angeles, and I use Blender for a little bit of not much like non-photorealistic, not much animation stuff, but a lot of visual effects stuff. So a lot of simulations and particles and things exploding and stuff like that. And I end up doing a lot of little background things. So I do have to do like a bit of modeling sometimes and all that. But so yeah, so a little bit of everything. And then of course just being interested in it. You know, when I get the chance, I like to dive into other aspects. Like I've dabbled with grease pencil. I'm not very good at it and all that, but it's just fun. So and same with sculpting and even when the whole pandemic thing started. I dove into like hard surface modeling. I thought, oh, maybe I'll get some weeks off work and I can just do some tutorials for like 2 weeks straight and watch things and learn new stuff. So I got into some things, and I got into like when I was doing the hard surface modeling and wanting to texture and stuff. Of course, Substance Painter is super popular right now. Everybody loves Painter. Everybody does everything in it. And so I would see all these, you know, everybody would always point it out. Like here's a really cool like cube textured in Substance, and it would be a nice texture, but it wasn't like mind blowing. And I would always wonder like, well, why did they leave Blender to just do that? Or you know, can Blender do everything Substance can do, or whatever? Like, you know, Blender's had great texture painting for years. Not as great as Substance. I mean, I know what Substance can do and all that. And I know it's not that great, but a lot of this stuff, like 90% of the stuff I would see, I'd be like, why did they leave Blender? Like, we could have just done that in Blender. And I don't know if like people just never knew or forgot or what. But I did like a few time lapses just to like of painting little objects and stuff. So I got all these like email requests like, oh, can you do a full tutorial of that? So I might whip up like a full tutorial on painting stuff. But I did want to just like, if you haven't done it at all, I'd love to show it if I can. How do I get out of full screen? View, exit full screen. I can share my screen and I can show you just a real quick like rundown of how easy making like a complex, not a complex, but a nice looking shader is if you're doing stuff. I just actually there's a new issue about to come out of 3D World magazine. That's a whole Blender issue, and I did a I can actually show you the object. Let let me open up a picture of it and I can show you. But I did a tutorial of it, of how to do this texture painting. I can give a quick little demo of it right now. So let me share my screen. Hopefully this works, right? Yeah, I can go to Blender, right? Can I go ahead and share it? Yeah? Okay, I'll do it. Everybody see that? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. So I go, where's image editor, right? Open. Can I just drop this in here, maybe? Can you guys see, you still just see Blender, or do you see a little file browser? Can you guys see that?
Only Blender.
Oh, only on Blender. Okay, let me do, close that then and just drag it into Blender. Then we can look at it in there. So yeah, there it is. So I did this little thing just as like a test. And when I posted pictures of it around, I would get all these messages like, oh my gosh, was that all substance? And I'd be like, no, like that's the whole point, is like this stuff is really easy in Blender if people just give it a chance. I even tried to learn, I looked up Armor Paint, which is a 3D, it's like basically like an open source substance painter it's trying to become. And I started learning it and I was doing stuff in it. And every time I would do stuff, other than the baking system was really nice, but everything else was just like Blender, just like Cycles. And I kept thinking, like, why did I come into this other program to just use all the same exact nodes and the same rendering and the same layering? And so I stopped learning Armor Paint because there was no learning involved, really. It was just a different UI for all Blender stuff. So then I just dove in deep on all this, just doing everything here in Blender. And I can give you a quick little demo, like just to show you the basic idea of it. Let me do a new project just to make, it doesn't matter actually. So this may not be new to some people, but it's super easy, right? If you have an object, I don't know if we should do it. I'll show you a quick demo on this thing. All right, bevel it a little bit. Scale that up a bit. And shade smooth and auto smooth it. If you wanted to do like a complex shader on this in the shading, what I do is I always start with 2, right? Like or at least if I'm doing like a hard surface kind of metal thing, which is what I would spend a lot of time doing. So I'll make 2 shaders, and one will be like a paint kind of color. And I'll leave the roughness a little bit kind of in the mid-range there. And the other one, I'll make some kind of metal, right? Turn up the metallic, turn the roughness way down. And then the whole idea is to just blend between these 2. So if you take a mix shader, throw these together, put the paint on the bottom, turn that up. So now I should do it like that, right? Because paint is over top of the metal. Now, and what we want to do is just paint to reveal the metal underneath. And you just do that with an image, right? Which you can just make the image, plug it in, new. You of course want to go, I'll call this like edge wear. You want to go as high as your computer can handle probably. But for this demo, I'll just do like a 4K image, I guess. Alpha doesn't matter. 32-bit float matters in some, depends on what you're painting. But basically right now, that image is completely black. If we were to look at that image, it's black. So it's not revealing anything, right? It's not. So if we were to fill that with white, it's like an alpha channel, right? Black means transparent, white means completely opaque. So because we have that plugged in as the reveal matte and it's completely black, transparent, all we're seeing is metal, no paint. So if we reverse that really quick with just a fill, and you can, there's like a color palette right here you can real easily pick from. If you fill that with white, now you can see all paint. And then if you go to black and you paint stuff, it should just, what am I doing here? I'm doing something wrong, huh? Edgeware, right, F. Oh, did I switch the color? Yeah, there we go. So now when you paint, it just reveals it, right? And it's all in real time. And then if you want to get that looking, much better, you can go back into the shader and use that same exact matte to do other things what I like to do is I'll throw a color ramp on it, which is basically like a levels adjustment, kind of crush it a bit and kind of harden up the edges. And that way, if you're painting with, say, a texture, if we go down to texture mask, hit new, and you throw in a texture in that thing, like a noise, doesn't have to be anything fancy. Come back here. Sometimes it pops up in the texture as well, so make sure you turn it off in the texture. But now if I paint, you can see it kind of looks bumpy, right? Turn that up all the way, turn that up all the way. So it kind of looks bumpy a little bit, and you can, whatever, experiment with all that and dial it way down and make it look crunchier just using that levels. And then you can also run that into a bump map if you want. With just a quick vector bump, plug that into the height, plug that down here into the normal, and it bumps it. And then you can mess around with that kind of stuff and whatever, get it looking real nice. And anyway, you get the idea of how quick it is to set up. You can just jump between black and white. And as long as you're painting on the same map, you're always, you're just adding or deleting, where you want paint and where you want metal, and it can actually get really fun. It actually, once you have that levels adjustment on there that's crushing the alpha channel thing that you're painting, it kind of looks like it's growing as you paint. So it's kind of neat. It's kind of fun, interactive way to paint on stuff. And of course you can do that with anything, right? And now in shading, now that you know that basic step of how to just make an image and start painting on it, you can make another image and plug it into the specular path. So you can plug it in on top of you can combine the color, so you can paint like grunge and dirt and oil or whatever, put it into the reflection and do a colored reflection or something. You can kind of do anything. So I've just been, doing a lot of that lately, and it's really fun. And I have some demos, right? Like I have just some of the things I was like making was like I did this kind of thing, and I haven't really dove into texturing this one yet, but I'm going to give this stuff all away free on my site at some point once I clean up the model and get rid of all the booleans and all that. But it's just fun stuff to try painting on and messing around with, like this little canister thing, which I actually did do I started doing a little paint test of it, which is here. And, it probably takes a second for it to load an EV. Yeah, there you go. So that's just, spending some time painting all the grunge and dirt and all that. And you can do a lot of this procedurally as well. Like if you learn to do like an edge mat and all that, and you can plug in the edge mat, and that'll give you a great start. That'll get all the tight little edges, but it won't give you these big blocky, these big sections where maybe something scraped along this canister or whatever. So it's fun. And of course, everything always looks better in cycles. So yeah, but it works in both. You do the live painting right in Eevee and then switch over to cycles for rendering, and everything looks really good. So
I've got a question.
Yeah, please.
Has hopefully I switched my microphone, so let me know if you're getting any echo or anything. But has anybody messed around with using like rigid bodies and dynamic paint for producing edge materials in this kind of painting format? Like I'm kind of imagining like you put your object in a phone booth and it just fires like particles and crap at it, and then when it comes out, it looks all like chipped.
Right.
Substance has something like that. I don't know if Blender does, but I know Substance has like particle rust, I think, that you can like put on something and it like does like rust leaks that are like procedural, which are cool.
Yep. And you can do that in Blender. You could set that up. You could just set up a dynamic paint, make a particle system that does the painting, and then just run that part, just do a live, there's a thing, I don't know how many people know this thing. It's, everybody probably knows it, right? But if you if you turn on the record button and hit play and move stuff around, it's making keyframes, right? So Now that's in there. Oh, Jesus, this thing is in the way. Right, so it records your animation. So you could move your emitter around in real time, bake out the paint map from the dynamic paint, and then, you know, just use that in your texture maps. So you have that same kind of thing where the particles will find all the low spots and kind of all running where they normally would with physics. So it's a little more setup, of course, than Substance, which is why Substance is awesome. But you could certainly do that in here.
That's a bunch of extra steps, so I can't imagine many people doing that though, because that's
I can't. Yeah, I can't either, and that's a good reason for Substance. But
what you could do is what you could do is create a virtual paint booth with like a virtual paint gun that shoots particles, and just throw an object in there, right, and then save that as your default paint booth file,
right?
You know, or as a template once you get it set up.
Yeah, just import the model, make it a collision object, and then hit go, and bake out that map. Go back into your original model file, load up the map, and you're good to go.
All right, the gauntlet has been thrown. If anyone wants to take it out and stick it up on BlendSwap, that'd be super cool.
That's awesome. So that's, I'll be doing a much more. I'm gonna try and do like 2 tutorials, like the quick little like 2 or 3 minute. Here's how to do the basic setup, like what I just showed you with how to plug in 2 materials and a map, just if people want to see that. But then I'll also do like a bigger one where I texture a full thing. So yeah, I don't know. There's already so many texturing out there. I wasn't really going to, but enough people have emailed me asking to do it, so I may just throw it in there. Yeah.
With all this hard model modeling, are you using any add-ins for that?
I'm not.
No.
Just the built-in bool tool. Of course, you know, hard ops and box cutter are amazing. And if I was doing this for a living, I would certainly do it. But I wanted to learn. I wanted to do it all manually first, so I really understood everything. So as I was doing all the shortcuts and cheats later on, I would at least know if something broke or didn't work, I could go in and manually fix it. Or, you know, it's just good to have a good solid foundation before you start cheating, which add-ons aren't cheating, but you know what I mean, taking shortcuts and all that. So yeah, someday I'd like to get into box cutter and hard ops and all that. But for now, I was just using just all the built-in stuff. Bool tool is great. I don't know if anybody's ever messed around with bool tool, but it's super easy. If you just bring in 2 objects and you know, you can select one, select the other, and just cut things out of stuff. So it's really easy. And then you know, to stay organized, I always make a new collection called like cutters, and then that always stays off. So now it's done, it's gone. So then I can just keep adding in more things. So you just keep doing all that. And it's a pretty straightforward process. It's all just where you're cutting things out and all that. So it's not too hard. But yeah, box cutter and hard ops just look amazing. But they have such a in-depth UI that you have to learn for it that I haven't wanted to dive in yet. So
yeah, I picked up Decal Machine.
Yeah,
like Cyber Monday is great for that. Like everything on Blend it's discounted, so I usually buy them, but it takes like 6 months before I get around to playing with them.
Right. I got a while back, I got KitOps, which is same type of thing, right? It's just like a panel with a bunch of pre-made things you can just drag and drop on, and it cuts out complex, cool things. And I was using that for a little bit and making cool stuff. But then I realized like everybody who buys KitOps is going to have the same looking boxes, right? Like everything's going to, at some point, these are all going to look the same. Everything online is going to all look the same. So that's when I was like, I should just learn to do this manually and then just use those tools for the smaller things, like a little, whatever, like a USB jack or a knob or something. Just use it for the small things. So I bought a few tutorials and dove in. Yeah, it's fun. But yeah, the texturing is fun, and there's no reason to leave Blender to do it. I'm still keeping my eye on Armor Paint because I want it to be better. I don't want it to be just Blender with a different UI. So I know I think they got an Epic grant. I don't know, it might be just be one guy working on it, I think. And I think he got an Epic grant. So I'm hoping it changes a lot and improves a lot and makes me say like, oh, I can't do that in Blender. I need that. and I'm thrilled that it's free and open source and all that. So keeping an eye on that. Yeah, so that's kind of what I wanted to show with the painting stuff. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I can't seem to find my chat for some reason. Oh, there it is. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, maybe yell them out or whatever, and then I'll move on to the quick Retopo demo if nobody's seen this stuff yet. All right, I'll just move on then. So yeah, I've also been, with all these sculpting changes, I've been jumping into sculpting a bit, which I've always done a little bit of, but it's been a while. So I wanted to like start checking out some of the new tools and get used to some of the new ways of working and all that. And I've barely scratched the surface, but I started modeling some things. And a long time ago, years and years ago, I'd made some models, and I did the whole process where I retopologized them, baked the normal maps, painted, blah, 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 final render and all that. And it was really fun and learning and all that. So I'm kind of running through that again. And that last one I did, I think was like 7 or 8 years ago. So things have changed a lot. There were no retopology tools, even though Blender has some really good like face snapping tools that you can kind of set up to use as good retopology. And I did it entirely with that. I drew on the mesh with grease pencil to kind of lay out where I wanted things to go. And then I just started modeling poly by poly. But then the other day I did this thing, and I wanted to like really dive deep into like Retopo Flow, which if nobody's heard of it, it's CG Cookie's retopology tool, which is amazing. And every once in a while they come out with a new version, they redo the whole UI, and it's real nice. So I kind of dove into that a bit, and I wanted to just show like the basics of it. I was actually thinking of doing a tutorial on it. And then I think yesterday or 2 days ago, Flip Normals came out with a great little half-hour tutorial of it. And I would say just go watch that because it covers everything. But when I was trying to figure out all the details of it, there's no real amazing tutorials on it until that Flip Normals. So I was going to, but I may skip it now. But I can show you the basics of it. I don't know if this mesh may be a little, whatever, we'll try it on it. Like, I don't know if it's too heavy. I'm trying to keep things fast for the demo, but once you install it, it's just a little button up here. And with your mesh selected, you just go into create new target, which is your target mesh that you want to retopologize. And I don't know if nobody knows what retopologizing is. It's when you sculpt something, the mesh is crazy. There's millions and millions of polygons, and some areas they may be super dense, and other areas there may be like one giant polygon. So you need to kind of balance all that out and make a really nice clean mesh with proper edge loops and stuff, especially if you're going to animate it. So you have to kind of paint a new mesh over the detailed one and then bake the details onto that new mesh. So now you've got all those details are kind of captured in the texture, but the underlying mesh is real clean and nice and easy to work with for animation or whatever else you want to do. Yeah, see, it's taking forever to. I should have brought in a smaller sculpt, but it'll work. It'll get there eventually. So yeah, that.
How many polys in this mesh, John?
What's that?
How many polys in this mesh?
I don't know. Actually, I didn't even check. I just know it takes a while. I wonder if I can cancel and open up the smaller one.
That's all right.
Yeah. So yeah, I haven't even finished. Like, I want to do more details on like the neck and stuff and all that. And then once I retopologize, I'll do painting and all that stuff. It's a really fun thing to go through the whole process, and especially like with all the new I guess it's since 2.8, you've had all these like cool like cavity where it darkens cavities right in the viewport and all that, and that just makes it look so sweet while you're working on it and stuff. It's taking a long time. Oh man, I purposely brought in a different sculpt, an older one, just because it was much lighter than this. Maybe I can get out of this.
So a question while we're waiting.
Yeah, please.
Has anybody managed to get any of the NVIDIA RTX 3000 cards and get to play around with them in Blender?
Oh yeah, I have a 3080.
Well, I'm sorry?
What's that?
You have a 3080 or a 2080?
Yeah, I have a 3080 Founders Edition I just got.
Ah, very good.
Yeah, I got a new machine, so I kind of went to town with it.
Yeah, that's about the only way to get the cards these days is to get it bundled inside a new build.
Right. So yeah, can you guys see this one now?
Yes.
Another sculpt. This one's much easier. I don't know if we can. Oh, this one's already. Did I multi-res this? Yeah. Okay. So I multi-res this one. So I didn't use multi-res on that new one. I'm just sculpting on the geo. So I guess if I applied this, we could see how many it was, but I don't know how to tell how many this really is. But same thing, right? If we want to retopologize it, create new target. Hopefully this goes much faster, right? Come on. This is that.
Are you using a sculpting tablet?
I am. I have a Wacom. It's really old. I think I bought this in 2002 or 2001, something like that. So it's ancient, but it's never broken or changed, or so I keep using it. No reason to fix it if it ain't broke. So
you bought that before I was born.
That's great. It was my first job. I worked at my first visual effects job was on the last Austin Powers movie, Goldmember, and they had them there. And every time I went into Photoshop, I would use it. And after about 2 weeks, I couldn't open Photoshop without it. So I had to have one for home. I couldn't do anything with a mouse anymore in Photoshop. So bought it then and had it ever since. So yeah, when you open Retopo the first time, Retopoflow, it gives you the help, all this help stuff, which is great. But the real basics of it, which again, you'll get if you watch that Flip Normals tutorial, the basics of it is so easy to retopologize. There's just a few tools. It looks a little intimidating because it kind of blocks everything out and gives you this whole new UI with all this stuff. But really, if you only use a few tools, like Polystrips is great, Strokes is really great, Polypen. I've been mainly sticking with these three: Strokes, Patches, and Polypen, and then Tweak and Relax for adjusting it. But like if you go to Strokes, everything's kind of based around control. So if you hold down control, you get this little brush. And if you just paint right on there, you see you're drawing a line. And all that's doing is drawing a line of vertices, right? So there's 26 vertices now. And I can hold down Shift and just use my mouse wheel. And if I want to turn them down, it's always good to start smaller and then add more later. And then with that still selected, if I go back to control and keep drawing, it's just going to extend that out and start making a real nice mesh. And it does all the, making sure that it's shrink wrap to it and all that. And then you just keep doing that, and it will only work with what you have selected. So because that whole loop is still selected, if I keep doing it, it'll just keep extending that out exactly where I drew it. And then you can grab, there's also pie menus if you like pie menus. I'm not so much into them, but you can kind of tweak things around, and it just keeps everything locked on the surface really nice. Yeah, so it's and there's so many things in here if you really want, but if you just want to learn the basics, which is all I've kind of really been dabbling with, it's super easy. Like Polystrips is really cool, but then sometimes I get weird results with it that I have to figure out what's going on. Like it lets you draw a strip of polys, which again, same thing. You can kind of hold your mouse wheel if you want less or more, and then you can kind of move them around and adjust exactly how they're fitting. But sometimes I get some weird, it'll do some weird stuff. Like, I mean, yeah, I don't know. This isn't a good example because it's kind of working great right here, but sometimes it does do some pretty weird things. I think it's dependent on the angle that you're looking at it, right? Like if you're looking at it weird and you start doing something weird with it, like sometimes it'll do weird things. So I've started using that Strokes tool until I figure that out a bit more. And you can select all these somehow, right? Select them, Polypen. Anyway, let me go show you the Contours tool, which was, if you have like arms and legs and stuff, the Contours tool is really easy. Just kind of draw things out, and it starts, it starts just retopologizing. I mean, this is a mess. I should have went into an actual orthographic left view and done it, but you know, you kind of get the idea of if you it'll just keep extending things out, which this neck, of course, isn't the best example of it, but if you have an arm or a tentacle or something long like that, it's ideal for that kind of thing. So yeah, it's just really cool. It's really useful if you're into this kind of stuff. If you have a few things selected, this is another terrible example, but you could do like patches and scroll wheel it up and make it as many as you want, hit enter and it commits it. So it's really easy to remake that clean mesh. And of course, first you would want to draw out all your main mesh lines, like where you want, if you're doing animation and stuff, there's certain ways. If you're going to do a mouth animation, there's certain places you should have the loop. And it's always good to look up a reference or you know, already know where those are supposed to go and all that, and draw those out first and then start filling in the gaps. And there's a great relax tool for you know, just kind of making sure everything's kind of nicely spaced and not crazy and all that. And you can adjust the strength of all these tools as well with the standard brush F and Shift F and all that in Blender, which is if you're texture painting or sculpting, F and Shift F are your size and your strength for your brush, and that works in here as well for all these brushes. So yeah, so that's it. It's a little, like I said, it's a little intimidating because when you first click it, it takes over your interface and gives you this whole new interface. But if you just learn the basics, it's really easy. And then you just hit exit and you go back out of it, and now you've got your new mesh. Right? Yeah. So, and then you can even in here you can keep working with it as you normally would any other mesh. So, yeah, it's really cool. It's worth checking out if you do this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's it really. Unless there's some questions or anything.
Hey, earlier
that is super cool.
Oh. What was the question?
The question is earlier when you were trying to do that high dense alien automatic retopologize, is it good at capturing, for example, sharp edges?
Retopoflow?
Yes.
Yeah, it depends on how you want to do it. If you there's do I still have that open? Yeah, you can also go in if I have that guy selected, Retopoflow, or jump back in. No.
I'm sorry, I think I might have been confused. For the alien, I thought you were having Retopoflow automatically retopologize the alien head.
It wasn't automatic, and you know, I'm kind of doing it manually. But you can add loops in, you know, Control R, which is how you add loops in when you're regularly modeling. That works in there. It switches you over to the loop tool and lets you add in loops anywhere. So if you have an area with more detail, it's very easy to put it in there, especially if you've set your loops up in the right way to begin with. So yeah, it can capture as much detail as you want, as dense as you want to make your retopology, you can. You know, I was using the scroll wheel to kind of bring everything down. Like when I first drew something, it had like 26 vertices, and I brought it down to whatever, like 14 or something. You can just leave that higher and work at a higher mesh if that's what you want to do. Myself, I work really small, and then, or I'm sorry, like big polygons, so a small mesh count on the retopology, and then I would go into just in the regular modeling tools, subdivide it and then shrink wrap it. And if I needed to, if I really wanted to, you know, double up on the polygons that I drew manually, but it can capture as much detail as you want. It's totally up to you. So yeah, that's all I got. Unless, you know, I'm always up for visual effects questions too, if anybody's got any.
Yeah. Did you see that they added like real-time motion tracking or something to one of the Blender builds?
They did. They improved. If you have a lot of things tracking, which if you use the detect features a lot, it'll track a whole bunch of things at once. they've sped that up like 25 times, which is spectacular. And I haven't dove in yet. I'm going to do that this weekend and really get in there and look at it, and send Sergey, the developer, shoot him a message and let him know what I think, because he likes hearing it if it's good.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it should be pretty cool. It was already blazing fast. If you're just tracking one thing and you've already got it prefetched, it would do it in a blink of an eye. So having it go much faster on huge, if you've got 100 trackers in the scene, that's great. That's nothing wrong with that. So cool.
Hey Sean, how would you compare ReTopoFlow with like TopoGun or some of these other like dedicated retopology tools?
Actually, I don't know. I haven't used any other tools, so I don't know for sure. I remember TopoGun back when it came out, whatever, 15-ish years ago, when I was still a Max user, but I never used it. I've watched demos of how, I haven't done this for years, but a few years ago, I used to watch demos on how ZBrush would retopologize, where you could draw things and it would kind of guide where the polygons would lay down.
That's for the auto retopology in ZBrush.
Right.
You can draw the guides.
Right. Which is amazing too. But as far as, in depth how they compare, I don't really know. I know the Flip Normals guys were saying that it's right on par with Maya's retopologizing tools now. So I don't know how that compares to anything else. So I should know. It'd be nice, but
it looks a little bit better than Maya's retopology tools, actually.
Cool. That's good to know. Awesome.
I feel like I would do a first pass running like quad remesher or something across it first.
Yeah.
Like cleaning up all the, the bits around the eyes and the nose and the
facial
needs work. I don't know.
Sometimes if you do those quad remeshes though, which I did on that first alien, the really big one, I did quad remesh it once at one point. If you don't have it set right, you'll lose a lot of detail. So I wasn't into the detailing of mine yet when I remeshed it, but I did have to go back in and tighten up a few creases and things like that, just to because they kind of got brushed over when you remesh. But yeah, and the multi-res, there's a multi-res modifier which lets you kind of sculpt in layers, and that got a recent refurbish. They kind of made it work properly, because it used to be a bit buggy, and now it works really good apparently. So that might be worth experimenting with a bit more. So yeah.
Cool. Any additional questions for Sean?
Right on.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean.
Sure thing.
That was awesome. All right. Well, this is, I think, the point in our meeting where we typically we would be breaking for bagels, but as there's no in-person bagels, let's open it up to show and tell. So does anybody have anything Blender related that they want to show off, either a feature?
I could show one of my projects.
Yeah, I got one we can go to too.
Yeah, I also have some stuff. So looks like my Zoom is crashing, so please continue. Next.
Uh-oh.
All right, hopefully that works.
Sounds like he's got some packet loss there or something. I think he's saying somebody continue or show and tell or something.
Yeah, I'm back. So Joseph, you were going to show something? Are you able to share screen?
Yeah, I could show one of my projects. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. Let me see. So I don't use Zoom much, but let me see if I can share my screen. So a project that I did, I could just
Yeah, don't forget to click the share computer sound check mark if you're going to show any videos.
Oh yeah, share computer sound. Okay. I'll do optimized screen sharing for video clip too. Hopefully that'll work. Yeah, so here you go. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just show the Blender Nation art. I made like I had an article on Blender Nation about this project that I did. It's probably better if I just show the Blender Nation article because it kind of like compiles all of my Blender work. But
hey Joseph, sorry to interrupt. Can you reshare without that the optimize for video really lowers the resolution a lot.
Oh, okay. Let me try that. Yeah, let's see if I do this. Does that help? Oh, did I do the wrong screen? Okay, hold on. Wait, share screen. This one. Share computer sound. How's this? Can you see it?
Looks way better. Thank you so much.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to read this article. I was just gonna use this article to like click the images or whatever. You know what? I could maybe post this in the chat room if that's possible. I mean, here, let me just post this in the chat real quick. There you go. And that'll probably make it easier for everyone. So basically I did this, I used to read a lot of Calvin and Hobbes growing up. And so I wanted to like make a short little video based off my favorite character from Calvin and Hobbes, Spaceman Spiff. So here it is. I'll just show it to you and I'll give you some like behind the scenes for how I did it real quick. Can you hear it fine?
Sometimes I think the surest sign that intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe is that none of it has tried to contact us. Hero sets his death ray blaster.
Yeah, so that was just like a short little, thank you.
That was really cute.
That was awesome.
That was amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that was like a little, it was basically like the little comic version video that I always wanted to make growing up. You know, whenever I read through like the entire Calvin and Hobbes collection like multiple times and stuff. I'm sure a lot of you know what Calvin and Hobbes is. And so, yeah, so this was kind of like a passion project for me. And a lot of like, I use Blender a lot for like the ideas, the layout, camera animation, modeling. Everything basically started in Blender. So here you can have like here's like a comparison. You can see here, it's like, this is like the Blender screenshot. And then this is like the final basically, which is pretty cool. I take it into Blender. I mean, I build everything in Blender. I build all the layout and then I go through like a bunch of different programs and eventually, you know, come up with a final image. This mothership, I tried to like I try to think a lot about like design first. I try to think less technical and more like design first. So the mothership, I try to like make it be like a real spaceship, I guess. So it's circular, so it has like the artificial gravity. It was inspired by the International Space Station. It was supposed to be like a cool, like retrofitted type alien spaceship. And then these mountains were inspired by this panel from the comic. This is actually where I got most of the idea for the Spaceman Spiff project. I saw this panel from the comic and I was like, this could be something really cool if it was like put in motion. So I built out the first scene to be basically built off of that panel from the comic. And here's how it looks in Blender. And then this was like my first initial layout. And then like the final looks pretty different, but like still similar.
That shot just looks fantastic.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it looks really, that looks like something out of a movie. It looks real.
Yeah, I used a lot of reference footage. Oh yeah, so I guess my background, I've worked on a good number of movies. I've worked on Pacific Rim, Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, Doctor Strange. So I've worked on quite a few movies. So everything I make, I try to make sure that it's like, you know, like that quality, I guess, the high standards and stuff. And I used a lot of reference. What's that?
Oh, which program did you render with?
So I usually build in Blender and then I export it to Maya and I render it with Redshift. I decided to do it that way mostly because that way I can like have like billions and billions of polygons, for example. So let's see if if I like zoom in here, you can see like the little rocks on the ground. There's like billions of polygons in my displacement maps and stuff. So Redshift is usually the best at handling that. Unfortunately, it's not in Blender yet. Otherwise, I would have probably rendered it in Blender, but they're coming out with the Blender plugin soon. But yeah, it was built in Blender. There was a thing, hold on, let me see. Oh yeah, right here. I actually rendered the like laser that came out of the spaceship and then like went in and like hit the spaceship in the very first shot. That was actually that one was actually rendered in cycles because that was kind of an afterthought of like, how do I ground the spaceship and kind of like connect it in a way to the mothership or whatever. And so one of my friends was like, why don't you do a tractor beam and make it look cool? So I ended up doing a tractor beam. And yeah, so it's weird. So it's actually like Maya Redshift, but then I use Blender cycles to do the tractor beam, would animate the tractor beam, which was cool. So yeah, the mountains were a big thing. The mothership was a big thing. The logo was actually inspired by this panel from the comic book. I basically just kind of ripped it from the comic book, which I guess I was just trying to be faithful to the comic book, I guess. And NASA has a bunch of really cool photos of like the moon and stuff. So I was like, what if instead of like a moon thing, what if I have like the logo like over the planet, kind of like the moonrise stuff that NASA has. So here's how I did the layout in Blender, and then here's the final thing, the final render basically. And then I don't know, for the final scene, I got a bunch of assets from Turbo Squid. Actually, this one was pretty quick too. I got a bunch of assets from Turbo Squid. Of course, I modeled the characters myself, so I tried to model them based off of Calvin from the comic book. And so this was the initial layout, and then this was like the final scene. I added the little tiger, which is another thing too. That's really cool, and it made everything fuzzy and cute looking. Try to make everything as cute as possible. So yeah, that's my project. Just wanted to show it to you guys. Took me several months. It was a big project for me. So yeah.
That turned out fantastically.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Really great.
Yeah, and I put the link to that article inside the Blender Nation thing. Anyone have any
bunch of questions?
Questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I got
questions.
Lots.
Sure.
First is all that detailing on the mothership. How was that done procedural, or did you model all that?
So actually, you know what? Let me just share my screen again. So the mothership It's like a mix. So I try to have like some procedural and then have some modeled and have some like I try to kind of layer it so it's like so that people basically ask like questions like how did you do that, you know? It was so the ship itself, like this part here in Blender, these were Turbo Squid assets. I didn't use them, but the ship, like the main ship itself, I modeled it by hand. I modeled it by hand and then I kind of like sculpted it. You can do like some hard surface sculpting in ZBrush. So I sculpted it and then I retopoed it by hand in Blender again. And then, I don't know, there was like some back and forth. So I modeled the big stuff by hand. And then I actually used a NASA, NASA has their International Space Station models. They have them on the internet. So I kind of ripped those, you know, just for realism, I guess, and like put them all around in like angles that look cool. Like you can see it on like the rim here. Like this is like the NASA space station, basically. I just kind of like bent it to fit around the ring.
That's cool.
And yeah. And then I used Substance Designer. My mom gave me Substance Designer for Christmas last year. So that was a fun little thing that I decided to experiment. And with that one, I was able to create the texture that's like these little greebles. They're called greebles, like these little lights and stuff that you can see inside the spaceship. So yeah, that was pretty cool. It was a long process, but it looked really cool in the end.
And what about like all the smoke sim stuff and the volumetrics? Was that all Houdini or did you do that in Blender? Or?
So that one, oh yeah, I forgot to go over that. Yeah, that was actually a mix. So most of it was Houdini clouds, are just like using the presets and stuff. The volume was Houdini. It's mostly because like I tried doing it in Blender, but the spaceship moves so fast. It's like every frame it moves like 100 feet or something. So it was really hard. I had to use like, I don't know, like 15 subframes or something in order to get the smoke to like look good. And the Houdini was a little bit better at that than Blender. I was having a lot of trouble with Blender's options, unfortunately. But I created the smoke plumes. The smoke plumes were kind of like an afterthought. I created those in Blender. Yeah. So cool. It's like a mix, you know, it's just like Blender's kind of like the patch. It's like, oh, something's broken. Let me just patch it real quick in Blender, you know? Yeah.
Did anything, did you get any work from this or have you gotten any like amazing responses? Because it kind of went everywhere for a little while.
It did actually. So yeah, I mean, I got like 38,000 views on YouTube, which was crazy. And then it was featured on several websites. And I posted a GIF on Reddit that got like a couple 100,000 views. So I was like, "Whoa, that's really cool." But I mean, honestly, like I didn't really get anything from it. You know, it's like, yeah, I mean, that's just the way it is. If you get like 50 million views, you get something. But I mean, I only got 30,000. So
very cool.
I'm sure you've posted stuff that gets that many views too, and it's like you don't really get much from it, right?
Not at all. No.
Like your Blender talk has quite a few views, but I don't know how much work you get from that.
Yeah, not many. But occasionally you get like a nice email from, they're like, "Hey, your video went around our studio and everybody dug it." Like, anything like that? Like,
yeah, I get emails like that. Some person in like Oregon wanted to show my video in like their small theater. I'm like, cool. Which is cool, but it's like we're in Corona, so how many people are going to see that in the small theater anyway?
It's true.
But yeah, it was a really fun project. It was mostly for me, you know, and it's just like I want to share it with people and stuff.
Looks great. Turned out awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Any other questions? Let me see.
Yeah, I love the comp on that mountain shot. Were those God rays rendered or are they faked?
So the God rays, those God rays were rendered. It was actually really, the ones that are like coming down from the mountain, right? Like the blue God ray kind of things.
Yeah, those ones.
Yeah, those were 3D rendered. The sunlight was done in After Effects.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the flare next. Is that a real stock flare, or is it like optical flares or something?
That's Video Copilot optical flares. So you can actually do a lot with Video Copilot optical flares. You can really push it. I watched Pixar's The Good Dinosaur to get a lot of inspiration for how I kind of like build my flares and shots and whatever. So that was another little inspiration for me. Yeah. All right, let me see if I don't know if the chat had any questions or anything. I don't know how to check the chat while I'm sharing a video.
So Joseph, when you were transmitting stuff between like Maya and Blender, what kind of format are you using?
So it's like, it's Maya, Houdini, and Blender. So it's, I mean, whatever format works, Alembic, FBX, mostly FBX, because the thing with Maya is like Maya changes every year. So the FBX in Blender has to be updated every year. So sometimes like it's hard to like transfer stuff. That's why sometimes I just did the render in cycles and just overlaid it after, because I'm like, I don't want to spend forever transferring this, you know. But yeah, it was mostly, I think it was, I did mostly with FBX. FBX is how I usually transfer stuff. And it's not too much trouble always, but yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to transfer stuff between programs because, I don't know, to me, it's like layers, you know, the more layers you have, the more cool something looks. And if you use like the best of every program, you can get something to look really good, in my opinion.
Wonder if Bill Watterson, the author of Calvin and Hobbes, would appreciate it.
Yeah, I wonder if he would like it or hate it, but I know he's like kind of like reclusive, so who knows? No one will ever know.
People have been asking him to continue the comics for years, and he tells everybody to go get stuff.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Well, I tried.
I'm glad he quit when he was ahead.
Oh yeah, I'm glad he quit when he was ahead, and I tried to be very faithful to the comic, as faithful as possible, but you know, that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Joseph. That was great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very cool. All right. So, so anyone else have anything they'd like to share?
I've got some stuff I want to share, but I think Patrick had actually spoken up before me last time we were talking.
Oh, yeah, mine's real quick. I've got around to playing with the Nishida Sky texture. Cool. And I haven't heard too much talked about it. And it's just amazing.
Sounds good. Yeah, share screen and let's introduce yourself and let's take it away.
Okay, trying to share the screen.
We find it's usually less problematic if you share your whole screen versus just a single app, because if you try to swap between things, then it just doesn't show up.
Let's see, optimize screen share, computer sound. Wow, I don't even have the whole screen option.
Yeah, normally it's got a screen and then a number after it for the whole
Probably
screen.
called like screen 1 or desktop 1 or something.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, it wants to get into my system preferences to allow anything. Like I'm locked out at the moment. Let me try and figure that out. If David wants to move ahead.
Yeah, I can go.
Cool, thanks.
All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Got a little presentation here.
Oh, wow, presentation.
Yeah. Well, so hi, I'm David Petratos. If you've seen me online at all, I'm Pet Rat Productions or D1 A1 View Anyone, and I do visual effects stuff. I primarily make really short videos and enter them into contests. And one of the videos that I recently made, it's called The Forest. It was for the Film Learning 150K competition. It's a short horror film. And I got some cool shots I want to show off. So first off, this one. Sean, I'm sure you know what that was inspired by. That was based off of a effect Sean showed off at, I don't know, some talk a few years ago. I forget what it was, but that's, let me go back to it actually. It's the cloth effects add-on for Blender. And it's basically just a plane with the video texture on it that then gets pierced to reveal the layer under it, which was the next shot. And then I also made this egg. The egg was made in Blender. The moving slime bits are slime stock footage. But I created the egg and the little creature inside of Blender. I textured it in Substance because that's the easiest way for me to do it. And it's free because I'm a student. But this was all done in Blender. It was rendered in Eevee. And I made these eyes, and they show up later in the video as well with much more prominence. Little eyes inside of the trees. And it's just like a really simple eye model that I animated to look around. And then I put inside the tree. The slime I already said was stock footage. But then the tree as well, that was done in 2D. In After Effects, it's a simple animation. It doesn't look very realistic, but it gets the point across. And then I also did this cool leaf effect here, because originally the actor was just going to get eaten, but it didn't make much sense for the rest of the, well, I say the actor. Originally I was just going to get eaten, but it didn't really make much sense for the rest of the film, because the forest is supposed to be like a dream world. That's why it's got all the weird bright lines. So instead I had to animate myself like being brought up and then falling down. And I added these digital leaves to try to make it more realistic because my body kind of interacts with them. It doesn't really add much, but it was a cool thing to do. And then, yeah, more on the eyes. I created this really cool eye texture. It was made, there's this like generator that I bought for $5 that generates eye textures. And I just put it on like a simple sphere model. And I made it so that the eye would light up based off of the, what's it called? The eye would light up based off of the texture of the pupil area. So I got that cool little waking up effect. It was all rendered in Eevee, so it rendered really fast. And I actually have a couple other things I want to show as well. The others are quicker. This was a short film called The Soul Stealer. Oh, by the way, this short film won the contest. There was 7 winners, and I was one of them. That was a pretty huge thing to win. I think it was like $10,000 worth of prizes across all 7 winners.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing. Congrats.
Thank you. But then I made another one for a different contest. This was for a FX Home contest, and you had to use their software. So this first shot was, here's what the final shot looks like. That's just a bunch of 2D planes that I animated inside of HitFilm. This isn't Blender, but that's just a cool way to do 3D stuff. The stuff that is Blender is I had this little creature here, and this was made, I just had like this mask on a stick, and then I created a body inside of Blender. It doesn't look too good, but I had to finish it fast, and I think it turned out all right. It was textured in Substance Painter. I think this is literally just like a long cube that I used the cloth brush on a bunch. It doesn't look good at all, but it looks fine in the final render.
I was asking somebody just the other day about using the cloth brush for like skin wrinkles.
Yeah, I use it a lot, especially for like more abstract creatures like this. And once you get the hang of it, it's a lot of fun. And then I also have these other creatures that also use the cloth brush at the end. And in the final, you cannot see them at all. So all that work's kind of wasted. But this is what the creatures look like in Blender. And these are just spheres that I use the cloth brush on a bunch. So it definitely could work for skin wrinkles. I mean, this isn't a great example because this isn't realistic at all. But for abstract stuff, it works really well. Yeah, there you can't see it at all. And then I also
quick question, sorry. Am I saying correctly that you've got an empty driving like a gradient texture or something to run those blinks instead of rigging them up with geometry?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I had little spheres, and then it's just a gradient texture where the object info is connected to the empty. I didn't even normalize it or anything. It's literally just a scaled down empty to get that the tight blinking effect. It looks all right in the final. And I created an arm, but the arm's not too interesting. This was another thing that won a contest, which is why I'm showing it to you. It's all my good work. I got a truck that came to our house to deliver some stuff, and I was allowed to use it in the film, but I couldn't show the logo. So what I did is I digitally recreated like the front of the zoom thing is in the way. I digitally recreated the front of the truck and then just hand animated it to copy my hand motion, or the motion of me lifting it. And I managed to create this pretty convincing logo replacement on a truck, and that wasn't an easy surface to recreate.
Looks great.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
This is a lot of fun. And this is a 10-second contest. You make a 10-second video, and every month they have a winner, and you get a random prize. I got these headphones.
Nice.
Is this for like a college or something?
No, this is for Production Crate, which is like, it's a VFX asset website.
Oh, I see.
They've got a bunch of 3D models and also video stuff. So if you ever need like really specific abstract lightning or magic balls, you can download it and it's all pre-keyed and stuff.
Oh, that's really useful.
It really is. It's great, and it's super cheap. It's what is it, $60 a year, and you get a crap ton of 3D models and like environments and stuff.
There's
but yeah,
also
every
a
month
portion of each collection that's free.
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily a portion of each collection. They just have free assets. Like I don't think any of, oh no, yeah, a few of these are free. Yeah, but none of like the big plumes are free. But they do have like the lower resolution stuff tends to be free, or like the less good looking things. But it's not only bad looking stuff that's free. They have a bunch of like they have the whole 3D section now. I think they just like, yeah, they got this low poly tree, and this is a free one. Well, that's not a good looking tree at all, but and that's not free either.
About that palm tree.
They have guns and stuff, and I know one of these. Yeah, they have this nice desert eagle that's free, and it's all the different pieces are disconnected, so you can animate it nicely. Check out Production Crate. But anyway, they have the monthly contest where every month you have a 10-second video, and they'll give you a theme. This month there's an app for that. I think, yeah, this month was underwater. So when I open the truck, I've got my mom in there who's like behind some water glass wall. And then you win a surprise. It keeps changing. Originally it was like you get $500, and then it was you get a prize that's somewhere between $100 and $500, and now you get something.
Get something.
Yeah, you get something neat. But whatever. And also, this project, I spent like 2 months straight on it, and I was super proud of it, and it got like no recognition, which kind of sucks. Actually, I think it got a bunch of views. This was a 360 video that I made, and this is all shot on my iPhone. It's kind of hard to tell. I got a little drone that like goes around the camera and shoots me, and it goes up to this big ship, and at the beginning, the big ship like flies in. I got this whole environment. It's super, well, not super detailed. It's relatively detailed. I got like the whole alien invasion thing over here. There's random stuff blowing up in the background. A hologram over there. And this was, I shot my backyard. I shot it on my iPhone. You can see like this tree line. I hung up to here, and then this tree and the ground. You can kind of see the seam there. It was all real stuff that I shot on my iPhone, and then I mixed it with a couple 360 images, and then just added a bunch of stuff. I tried to bring up the file, and it's missing all of the textures. But this is basically what it looked like in Blender. I had a big sphere, These were like the different hits on the trees behind me when the ship was shooting. Let me see if I can go to, yeah. So I had this little drone that flies around the camera, and that model's from Production Crate. I think it's free as well. And then I had like this plane here. If I go into material view, it's all pink now. But this plane here was the footage of me. And I really wish I had the proper textures to show it off, because this was really neat. Where is it going? I think I was going to say something specific. I forget now. Sorry. But yeah, this part was footage shot on my phone. The big sphere was HDRIs that I mixed together, and then there's an outer sphere that's like a big sky texture, and that's where all the drones are flying. You got the big ships in the background. There were like some stock footage elements over here. I think this was a UFO that blows up. And you can see it blowing up. Yeah, that's just a bunch of image planes. And it looks pretty good in the final. So that's the 360 video. And then another thing I've been doing recently is I've started doing 2D artwork inside of Blender for my AP art class. I've got this, it looks kind of bloody. So if you don't like blood, don't look at this. I'll tell you all when it's over. It's nothing too bad. It's all created in Blender, and it's not super real. Well, Blender and Substance Painter. It's not super realistic, but just a heads up for that. So these are the final. Oh, I can't. There we go. These are the final pieces. I've got the idea for it's from my AP art class, which is like college credit for this class. And the thing I'm focusing on is I'm taking normal images and then mixing them with like computer-generated creatures. This is just a render that's not related. And I'm getting these like freaky, almost unsettling, I don't know what to call them. They're not technically renders because it's the composites, that's the word. So I was doing this for a few months, and then I realized that, or a few days ago, I was working on the chair one, where I got this little, where is it? Yeah, I got this little snake guy in a chair. And I thought, hey, I kind of want to show off my model. So I created like a solo render of just the snake model. And it's literally just like a curve that I did some randomized sculpting on, and then put it in Substance Painter and put a bunch of grunge and stuff on it. And I think this looks really cool. And people on Twitter thought this looked really cool. So I did it with all my other creatures. And this is where
Creepy.
Thank you.
Those are so fantastic.
It does look really cool.
Yeah. I think I might actually change my focus for the AP Art project to these types of renders, because it's super neat. It turned out so well.
I think the surfacing is great. Like I feel like I know exactly what it would feel like if I touched it, but I really don't want to touch it.
Yeah, don't touch him. He bites. He doesn't even have a mouth and he bites. That's not good.
It looks painful. It looks like that thing's like the burn areas, like the wettest areas, just look like they hurt so bad.
Yeah. And that was this one was like almost entirely by mistake. You actually have a little breakdown of it on my art station.
I want to touch his eyeball.
Don't touch his eyeball.
I can imagine a whole like parasitic biology to it. It infests someone's skull, and then when it's found out, it just abandons ship and crawls out of the socket and slithers away.
Oh, that's a horrible interpretation of it. I love that.
That's beautiful.
It was super simple to make in Substance. I'm sorry, Sean. I'm kind of going against what you had previously said.
No,
I'm
no,
sure you could do this all in
Substance is
Blender
great
as well.
Substance is awesome. I have nothing against it. It's awesome.
It was, I had like the scales texture, and that came with Substance. And then I just added like dirt and moss into it. And that, I think I bought a pack of dirt and moss stuff. So that doesn't necessarily come with Substance. And then just like randomized blood and then detailing it in specific spots. And then I just added a bunch of subsurface scattering, and it looked really cool. And the eye model is the same thing that I did with the creature, or the thing I showed you earlier, the forest thing. Except the texture is a texture that I bought off of Flip Normals when they were having their sale. But I did it with all the previous creatures that I had made for the other pieces as well. It doesn't look quite as good for all of them, and this is where the content warning comes in, because this really looks like a penis, and that was not the intention. This is what the render looks like. It looks fine there, but when you get close, it looks really bad. But for the others, it looks pretty good. Like this little face in the window, like it's just a weird shaped sculpt that I used, that like fluent cloth brush thing that inflates certain parts of the mesh. I just used that and normal sculpting and then some substance painter work, and I got this. And now I got this really cool clear render of it. And in the final piece, it really doesn't look that good. It looks creepy, but you don't get to see all the like blood details and stuff.
Just 3D print it and take my money.
Oh gosh. Imagine, can you paint stuff to look like this? That'd be creepy. And then same with this one. This doesn't look very good outside of its normal piece. It's a little box creature, but once you can see that the eyeballs are just floating, it doesn't look too good.
That might be my favorite.
Thank you.
That is so good.
Yes, I've been doing a bunch of this, and I'm really excited about these. I want to make more. And then also, I don't know if you're in the Blender community, you might have heard of this thing called Blender Royale. I mean, obviously, that's a weird way to say it. If you're on like Twitter a lot, you might have heard of Blender Royale, which is this weekly competition. It's on Arendale XYZ's Discord server, and I can put a link to that. Am I allowed to put a link to that in the chat?
Absolutely.
All
yeah,
right.
Go for it.
But it's a weekly competition where you get paired with a random person from the server, and you have 30 to 60 minutes to create a render. Originally, in the first few weeks, like this was me and Kate, so it was 2 people, and this was someone I had never met before. You get put with a completely random person from the server. And then you get a theme. I think the theme for this one was city or cyberpunk. I forget which. And then like each person spends 6 minutes working on the render, and then you send it to the next person. It goes back and forth, and it's all streamed to YouTube. So there's a bunch of fun banter between you and the other teams. This is my second week. It wasn't week 2, but this was a 3-person team, and that got really really complicated because you're sending it to 2 different people. It's a great way to meet other people in the community and just like make cool art. And then recently they've started doing it so that there's 2 rounds. There's a solo round, which is 30 minutes. You get a theme. This one is Fish Tank, and you got to create a render on your own. And then the top voted people from that round go on to a team round where you get paired with like 2 people. And then the top, I think it's like 6 people that move on to the second round. And so then you're all competing to make a render yourself. This week, my teammate did 1 round and then ditched me. So I had to finish this on my own in like the last 12 minutes. That doesn't look very good. But this was a render I made on my own in 30 minutes. The theme was Disney. And then I moved on to the second round, and I made this with a randomized partner, Triune Media. He's got like his own company, I think. So that's another cool thing, because I get to work with, like, this guy has his own company, and I am 16 and just doing random artwork, and we got to work together to make this thing. It's a lot of fun. Sometimes there's prizes. There usually isn't. We won this week. There wasn't a prize. And then this was the most recent week. This was last Monday. First round was race car. It's supposed to be a race car underwater. It didn't really work out. And then Funko Pop. So that's a super fun competition. And I think that's it, unless oh no, I have one last thing. I'm sorry, I know I'm taking, can I share one last thing? I know I'm taking up a lot of time.
We have time.
Stirling.
Of course.
All right. So last time I was here, I think it might have been the one that was 3 months ago. I showed off the start of Impact, which is this really neat shader I made inside of Blender, where it uses dynamic paint to find where stuff collides with it, and then it creates these cool like distortion effects. And this is a ton of fun to mess around with. I'm selling it. Everything, it's $1 on my Gumroad, if you want to check that out. But it's this really cool thing for sci-fi renders. Do I have the node set up down here? I don't think I have the node set. Hold on, let me go into the blend file real quick. I'm sorry.
So I see you're doing like some color aberration inside the shader. Are you splitting it with different refraction IORs?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. It's that's the chromatic shader, and it's just a few refraction nodes. I'm sure you know what it is. But it creates that really cool chromatic aberration effect, and it's I have it set up so that you can like adjust the IOR and what percentage of it is aberrating. This isn't a second. Yeah, that's super easy to work with and super fun. I mean, the node setup is super simple. I'm sure there's tutorials on it out there. It's just 3 refraction nodes, and then I think you offset. What is it that you offset? Yeah, you offset the IOR slightly so that each refraction is slightly different than the rest, and then when they're added together, it creates a cool chromatic effect. Looks really cool in this forest. This is the fire simulation one, so that's not going to work. Do I have? Well, what Impact is doing is it's taking the dynamic paint wet map stuff. So this works in real time. And then it's like putting it through a color ramp. And this specific shader is a fire. So it when it detects something hits it, it does a little mock fire simulation thing. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But it's a super simple setup that it creates these really pretty effects. And I actually made it so that there's a bunch of different. This is the wrong file to open. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. Here we go. Yeah, I have it set up so that oh gosh.
You may have more than one Blender version running. Maybe that's causing it.
Did we lose his mic?
I think
David,
so.
your mic is muted.
How long have I been muted? Oh no.
Oh no.
Just like a few seconds.
60 seconds. Yeah, you're good.
Oh gosh, sorry. But I have it set up so that there's a bunch of base shields. I've got the chromatic thing that I talked about earlier, and then these just random ones, and then a bunch of base impacts. And you can mix them together in the node editor. I think, here we go. Yeah. So I got like the tech impact and then the chromatic base shield, and it mixes them together. And this is just like a nice little setup I have. And you don't need to buy my product to do this. It's quite a simple setup. If you run a dynamic paint simulation, you can put. Is it a simulation? If you run a dynamic paint thing, you can take the wet map output or whatever you name the output, and then you can mess around with it in the node editor to create these like really fancy shapes. This one is mixing with, this is the only non-procedural one I have, I think. Yeah, it's mixing with this like hexagon texture I made. So that when it hits, it gives you that cool little hexagonal pattern. And then on a similar note with dynamic paint, I made this 2D fire thing. It's also on Gumroad, and actually this is, if you look up Blender 2D fire, this is the first thing that comes up now. So that's pretty cool. But it's a dynamic paint simulation. I guess it is a simulation. It's a dynamic paint simulation that looks like fire. So once it loads, I got a lot of stuff open right now. Here we go. So you can create like real-time fire simulations in 2D. And it even works like force fields, which I think most dynamic paint simulations do, which I didn't realize. You can create like these cool, I mean, I don't know if there's any practical use for this, but it's neat that it works. You can create like those little bisecting animations, and it bakes super fast as opposed to like normal fire simulations. And it still looks relatively realistic, especially at distance, especially for like text and stuff. But what this is doing is it's taking the dynamic paint output, and then it's adding like turbulence to it. And I think it has negative gravity. I don't remember exactly how I set it up. I don't know why I didn't have the file already open. Yeah, here we go. No, that's not it. I don't know where the file is. But I can still show it off here. It's just taking the simple dynamic paint output, and then it's mixing it with a bunch of weird shader tricks as well as force fields and stuff. And it creates this really neat like 2D fire effect. This got really popular on Twitter. It's a ton of fun to mess around with. I was going somewhere. I don't know where I was going with this. I'm sorry. That's my little work show off.
That's awesome. Thanks for that. Super cool.
Good job. Well done.
That fire is really cool. That 2D fire. I really want to see how it works under the hood, kind of.
Thank you. I can send it to you if you want.
I'll pick it up. I'll buy it one of these days.
Yeah, be sure you drop a link in the text chat for it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
We'll eventually put this recording up on YouTube, and if you remind me, I'll stick a link to it as well.
Thank you.
YouTube. Yeah, of course. Thanks, David. Patrick, you ready to demo?
I think so. Awesome. Are you seeing Blender?
Yep, we sure are.
All right. So this is the base Nishida sky texture. You just open it up, choose Nishida. At first, doesn't look too much, but when you dial it in a bit, you can get a really nice sunset. And just tweaking the air, dust, or ozone qualities can make it even a deeper red, bring out the sky a little bit.
Suddenly I hear chanting in Swahili.
So, or just create very neat, strange effects. Let's see. But yeah, this was a sort of an experiment in just creating a nice painterly background. So dialing in the sky and then bringing in a volumetric cube. Let's see if to fill out the skyline and just give it some depth. And let's see. Yeah, the cube might be a little too intense on my computer. But you basically can get some really realistic skylines with or without the sun. So if you just want to push that out of the way, you just have a nice clear horizon. That's an option. You can adjust the distance of the sun from the camera, the rotation, elevation. There's an add-on you can activate that will basically place the sun where it would be in real time. So that's pretty neat. But yeah, when you start combining it with the ocean, let's see, will that pop up? There we go. So I'm going to cut back. Nishida can only really be viewed in cycles in the final render. But to create the final picture I showed earlier, the dinner at sunset, it kind of just started with playing with the new ocean simulation, picking a nice frame from that, and then thinking, oh, what would be cool? A monster. And then there wasn't much of a story to this at all, so figured we just add some birds because the monster's hungry and had a reason to motivate his action to reach out. And ultimately that...
I just realized this image is what's your background, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is really cool because I've tried to have an ocean environment, and I like to use HDRIs for the background, and it can be really tough to find an HDRI that plays well with oceans, simply because a lot of HDRIs are created on land, and there's not a great there's not a lot of great resources that are not free, that are just sky textures that you can utilize with say an ocean. So yeah, this would be awesome for that.
Yeah, see if I can open up the final render. Because it only works in cycles, I believe it's possible to create your Nishida sky and then set up a 360 camera to create a equa rectangular and output that, and then at a high resolution, and then bring that back into Eevee. So you've just made your own HDRI in whatever setting you prefer, and then you can work with the ease of with Eevee, and kind of build off of that. And lighting wise, this only has 2 light sources, and that's the sun in the sky texture and a illuminated sphere just under the surface of the water to create that sort of creepy, otherworldly, bioluminescent feel to the Kraken creature sort of reaching up from the surface. Let's see. Yeah, it's a big illuminated sphere just underneath the waves. And building the ocean out was, just find a frame you like and then expand it out in a couple different directions to get that distance from the camera. Because that Kraken's really quite far away. At some point when I'll try and animate the ocean and build on this a little bit to tell more of a story with it. But for the moment, this is just sort of the thumbnail concept of it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'd love to see what others do with the Nishida sky texture and the way different clouds work into it. Mine's just one big volume with a cloud texture worked into it that is rather intensive. So yeah, just hoping to share this and get feedback and learn if there are better ways of doing it.
That's really cool. I like your render a lot, and I like how it's the big Kraken reaching out for the little bird. I didn't notice that originally when I saw it in your background.
Thanks.
I haven't messed with the sky texture much, but I'll definitely look into it a bit more.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into it either, but I really want to.
I bought that physical sky atmosphere add-on a week before they announced the sky texture was coming to Blender. And I have dabbled with the sky. I think I currently like the one thing with the physical atmosphere add-on, it's insanely slow. Just make a change and the I think it's probably because it has to run through a zillion nodes and stuff, but make a change and it takes like 10 seconds to update. And I think it adds like a couple minutes to my render times. But yeah, I've dabbled with the sky thing. I think I like the physical sky one more, but I'm excited to try out the Nishida a bit more.
Yeah, it's hard to get like that particular blue sky because it all comes down to tweaking the elevation, rotation, and wrapping your head around that process took a little bit, because normally I'm just like, I wanted this color, and nope, I'm dealing with physics now and ozone. So yeah, thank you for listening.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you for showing.
Yeah.
Also, I like how the blue light in the render matches up with the light you have behind you.
Oh yeah, that's funny. So I did bring a thing or two to show, but I don't want to take up too much time before running up against the end here.
No, we're good. We're good for time. Let's do it.
Cool. So I've got, I think, 2 sort of work in progresses. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, wait, it didn't give me the option to.
So when you first do the share, there's 2.
Oh, there it is. Optimize for video. Awesome.
Yeah, optimize for video lowers your resolution.
Yeah, cool. So I've got a couple things to show. One is, I would say, finished but not particularly impressive, and the other is very unfinished but will hopefully be impressive at some point. So I can just tell you guys about how impressive it's going to be. So this is just a fun little project that I completed a few months back. This was a funny. Somebody in a Blender Discord, I think, had a question about, they had like a spaceship and a cornfield, and they were trying to figure out how to get the corn to blow and react to the ship or the helicopter or whatever. And I was like, oh, I bet you could do that with some hair particle simulation and the particle instance modifier to run the particles along the hair strands. And I was like, let me just quickly jump into Blender and whip up an example of how I think that would work. And then I just grabbed a model, which in this case is the flying tow truck from Ian Hubert's Patreon, and just sort of threw an animation on it and started playing with it. And then, as so often happens with these things, next thing I knew, it was 2 days later and I'd made an entire scene. And I started getting so carried away on it that I started making it darker and darker, more dramatic, and you can barely even see the plants reacting anymore. I kind of pumped them up in the comp a bit, but I started to get so carried away, I kind of forgot to. So I don't think this is really a showcase of how they would do the technique anymore. I think it's just a scene.
Yeah, you
but
can
I had
see
a ton
it.
of fun with it. I just
see it, but it looks,
I was discovering that
really
I basically just kept adding more and more and more geometry to make it so, like, there's trees covering all the mountains in the back. There's grass on all the mountains in the back that's actual models of grass from Megascans or Grassveld or something. And I think I ended up with, I don't even know how many polygons I ended up with. I think it was like 16 million in the viewport with my particles set at like 25%. So I don't even know what the final count was. But again, the more particles I added, the denser I made it, the better it looked. So I just kind of kept going. And as you can see, I think the particle instances worked pretty well. It was really tough wrangling the fields and the wind things, and so to kind of get it to sort of move and blow correctly. But I think I ended up with something that kind of looks all right. I've also got this.
Did you end up rendering in cycles?
Yeah, it's a cycles render. I rendered a ton of I rendered in a bunch of different passes, and I rendered all my passes in Compton Nuke. I added a bunch of, you can see a tiny bit, there's a bunch of dust that blows up from the ground when the ship flies by, but it's so dark and contrasty you can barely see. And I also, I spent like a day rendering the headlight volumetrics, and then they're at like 3% opacity in the final comp, which is, just classic.
That's how it is sometimes.
Yeah. And this is also my first time, like I said, I just gotten that physical atmosphere thing. So this is all that add-on, which I thought worked great. It was basically just one click and looked awesome.
Yeah, that looks fantastic.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it looks great. Nice shot.
Like I said, because it was just sort of a thing for instance, I realized the truck has no driver because I was just sort of throwing stuff together. I didn't realize until it was like way too late to add a driver. Plus I can't animate characters. So I just sort of decided it's just a magical, I don't know, remote controlled truck or something.
No,
Where
that's
we're
the story.
going-
He's looking for his driver. That's why he's going to the Scarecrow.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Where we're going, we don't need drivers.
That works.
And then there's this one, which is a work in progress. I've got this scene I've been working on that's a sort of Indiana Jones style, you know, explorer uncovers the ancient temple kind of thing. So I've got just a bunch of green screen and I'm trying to do a big, this is actually a temporary thing, but the thing I'm most excited about is I filmed it with like a battery powered LED thing on the torch and tracking dots. And I want to track the torch and I'm going to add and simulate the torch flame, which is going to be tricky, but has the potential to be super cool. And since it's the whole point of this is to have something cool for my compositing reel. So if I can pull it off, it's just, you know, extra stuff to look cool. I've tried it a few times with some sort of hand tracks, and I'm able to get a decent simulation and I photo scanned the torch to get a duplicate of it to replace the battery box. It's all kind of overkill, but you know, overkill is, you know, it's all just extra steps that I can show in the breakdown. Was my thinking.
Very cool. It's a good project.
Yeah. And then I guess one last thing, I showed a work in progress on this, I think last time I was here. And this, I'd say it's basically done now. I don't really like the bubbles. I think it needs more bubbles, but I had this head tracking project where I put a bunch of dots on my head and tracked it and then simulated some hair in Blender. I think it turned out pretty good.
Turned out great.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
Really good. The hair is impressive.
Thanks. Yeah. It took, you know, like a zillion, as you guys know, simulations, you just kind of click it over and over again until you get something you like. This in particular was tough. I wish Blender had field visualizers, especially for the turbulence field, so that you can see when you're adjusting like the scale and strength, some kind of, I don't know, little wiggly lines in the viewport or some vector lines or something, just to show me what kind of scale I'm dealing with and what kind of strength I'm dealing with. Because I ended up having to do a million iterations just to get the scale of the turbulence right.
There is
I've
something
brought-
like that. Hold on, let me find it.
Yeah, it's in one of the tools. I think in maybe the fluid sim stuff, maybe the
really?
Mantaflow. But I've been begging them for years to do it for like just general forces, just for
Yeah, that would be so handy. I ran into the same problem when I was doing that truck shot. I couldn't tell what the forces attached to the truck were actually doing.
Yeah, I brought that up with them.
Yeah,
but
I don't think.
Hmm?
Yeah, I don't think it exists right now.
Have you guys ever suggested it on right-click select?
I think I went to right click select and saw somebody suggesting something similar, so I felt like I didn't need to double up on it. I mean, I think it's been something that people have suggested, but that's just not super high on the.
I mentioned it directly to Sergey in a visual effects improvements meeting and watched him write it in his notebook. And there you go. It's lost forever.
Well,
I found it.
If you can find that suggestion on right-click select, all of us can vote on it right now, and maybe we like bump it up the list.
I found something similar. It looks like this only works for material nodes, but this is I don't know if is it an add-on. I found something that is, it's what I was thinking of when you said that, and it's at least similar.
Oh, sorry. Somebody asked, is this entirely CG? What were you talking about? In the chat, somebody said, is this entirely CG? I assume you're talking about the truck shot? That was entirely CG.
Yeah, they were talking about the cornfield truck shot.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Man, this procedural field visualizer is pretty cool.
Oh, I think I saw this somewhere. I think this is textures, I think. So it's kind of cool, but I think it helps you visualize like your Verones and your cloud textures and stuff to see where they are.
Oh, pretty cool.
Which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to imagine a two-dimensional mathematical concept when you're trying to create something in 3D.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Carter. Those are all really great. The underwater one, you know, if you were holding a trident, you could pass for like a underwater god, really.
Yeah, it's funny. I got the idea from Aquaman, and then I was reading all the Aquaman behind the scenes, and they're talking about the CGI simulated hair and stuff. And I joke that what I really should have done was, instead of stopping with the article, running over to Blender and starting the project, I should have read the next sentence in the article, where every single artist who works on the movie talks about how it was the hardest thing they had to do for the film, and it was terrible, and spent years and years and years trying to do it. Because that might have warned me.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. All right, well, thanks for sharing. Cheers to that. Anybody else have anything else? We got about 4 minutes left. And
I have something I'd like to share. Actually, I don't know if it's going to work.
Yeah.
My name's Brian, or Bricktone gamer tag. You can look me up, just Bricktone, anywhere on the internet. I'm the only one.
Hi, Brian.
Hey, David. I love your stuff. That's awesome. In fact, you're 16 is mind blowing. I started when I was 16, but I was not doing anything near that level of what you're doing. But
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I don't think my video is showing through. Does anybody see that?
No, we're not seeing it.
I see the OBS thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to share the camera through OBS. Let me.
Do you have the right scene selected in OBS?
Yeah. I'm gonna blame it on Zoom. So I'll just change it to my desktop. How do I desktop?
So green share button at the bottom of the screen, share screen. Right. And then you want to select where it says screen 1 or screen 2. Yeah.
I think that's it.
I've got an eyeball.
Okay. Yeah. So this is I'm working on a project with a company where we're doing a real-time face tracking with facial scans and eye scans. The company that we work with they have actual eye scanners to scan the iris and the sclera and everything for digital assets. And we're putting this in the Unreal Engine to build these real-time facial tracking things, so you don't have to share your webcam, or you could do streaming, on Twitch or gaming and have So this last year I've been really working on learning Unreal Engine. I've been a Maya artist since '99, so I understand like 3D and everything, but there's some things about these new applications that are infuriating with menus and hierarchy organization. So I'm doing my best to get through all that. And Blender is the next thing on my list, because licensing and software is super complicated. It's not even about the money. It's about the barrier to entry. It's not even the money. So I'm excited to get into Blender and learn more about that. And yeah, so.
Oh.
I don't know. Can you guys see the facial tracking working?
See the eyes.
We're very close up on just the sort of T-zone of the eyes and nose and eyebrows.
Yep, that's all it is. It's just the face.
So is that your actual?
Live?
Yeah, this is live right now. So.
Oh, cool.
So if you, like, raise one eyebrow and blink, it'll work. I see.
Like how it shakes, like you're struggling to do it.
I know the facial tracking needs a little bit of tweaking in the algorithm so that it smooths it out, but the eye shader needs some work. The refraction isn't quite right, but the actual iris texture is somebody's eye, and the sclera is somebody's sclera.
So and the shape,
the shape of the cornea and everything is scanned with about 500,000 points to reveal like the shape of the eye. So, what was your question, Dave?
What's the purpose of scanning someone's eye? Like, and how does that work?
So it's kind of like a, optometry kind of like setup. It's like a little thing you put on your chin, and there's cameras, stereo cameras, and it uses like a yellow dye you put in your eye. It's really common. It's called fluorescein. If you ever go to the eye doctor, they put drops in your eye to reveal different things about what's in your eye. But the way the camera works is it it uses like a wavelength to capture the shape of the eye, because if you ever scan anything that's reflective, you would know that like it doesn't really work that great. So the system they have allows you to capture like the surface of the eye with the light spectrum, and then with the iris deformation, they have another 2-camera system with multiple lights to do it's not photogrammetry, but it's a little different. But that gives you like the color of the iris and sclera, as well as the 3D geometry of the iris at a crazy level of accuracy. So
that's really cool. But what's the purpose of that? That just seems like a really expensive way to do such a thing.
Yeah, it is expensive, and the whole purpose is to, like, you could take an actor, have them sit down in front of the camera, and then you have now a digital double of that eye. I think an example of, I think it was MPC that did Blade Runner. I think they spent like 3 months on just the eyes. So I don't know if you calculate the cost of 3D artists over 3 months, it's way more than what it would take to do a scan of that actor to get a hyper realistic eye.
So very impressive.
Yeah, and the goal is to bridge the uncanny valley so that eyes don't look creepy anymore, even though I know these ones probably do. So we're getting there. I think next week we'll have our open beta for this app. It's called iMoji app, and you can download it for free and play with it.
It's somebody who has just bought like 70 virtual reality head-mounted displays for my team at work to have like in virtual collaboration together. Like eye tracking and avatar creation is really important. Like there's a lot of corporate scenarios where we're absolutely dying. Along those lines, if anybody knows any virtual event agencies that could host an awesome but private social VR party, please ping me. I'm looking for somebody to hire. That will.
I think you probably know JT, right? He's in the Mozilla hubs right now. He's doing a lot with that, with virtual events.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, I mean, you could probably look him up and see what he's doing. He could definitely help you out, I think. That's a real, it's not realistic or anything, but it's definitely like a virtual space where you can interact with other people for free.
Thanks.
But yeah, that's kind of it. Any questions or?
I'm excited to see more of this kind of stuff. It's very interesting.
Yeah, another use case would be like a company that wants to build eyes could purchase our scanner, scan 1,000 eyes, and then do whatever they want with it. Maybe they have a library or something. So it's not really, our target market isn't really like, hey, you're an artist, you want to buy an eye scan. Like that's maybe down the road we'll get there, but right now it's more research and development and learning. So
that's a good point. I am definitely thinking about this from my like visual effects perspective, as opposed to the more universal perspectives.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think we'll definitely have some assets available, but I don't know how and when that'll happen. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Pretend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well done.
Awesome. All right. So we're basically about time, but we've been going for 3 hours. So thanks for everybody for hanging in there. We used to have a lot of breaks in our physical meetings, so I know this is kind of an endurance sport now. But yeah, it's some awesome presentations today. Thanks to everybody who presented. Hopefully it was useful. If you have a session that you want to present at one of our future events, the next version of Blender is looking like it's going to drop around the end of January. So we may have a meeting sooner rather than later. So reach out to me. Let me know what you want to present, or Sean, or David Andrade, or Joseph. And yeah, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Awesome.
And happy
Thank you.
Blend.
Thanks for
Thank
You had a
you.
fun time.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
one. It
everybody.
was a lot of fun seeing
Thank
all
you.
you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, good
you
seeing
too.
everybody.
Thank you to
Where
all
can
the
we find the
hosts.
recording?
Thank you to
Where
all
can
the
we find the
hosts.
recording?